Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Here's the 1-0. Swing and a drive deep to center field. Going back Yastrzemski. Onto the track. Onto the wall. Gone! Damon sends him home as he hits one towards the moon. And the Diamondbacks win by a final of 4-2. Rankin pitch. Crank to right. High and deep. What do you expect?
Wow, deep left field and out of here. Tyler Shelley with his 14th home run of the season, 432 feet into the parking lot. Swing and a miss. Gators do it. They go on the road and take two from Oklahoma State and will head to Clemson for a Super Regional appearance.
Ground ball to right side. McGinnis fields. He throws the first. They've done it! Evansville has turned Greenville from pirate purple to Purple Aces purple. And for the first time in program history, Evansville has won a regional. The Purple Aces are off to the Sweet 16. They will head to Knoxville this weekend to take on the Volunteers of Tennessee. 6-5 is your final, and they're going wild on the mound here at the stadium.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's going on, DB? Huh? What's up?
How we doing?
Dandy.
Did you get any sleep?
A little bit.
More than you did the night before?
Yeah. I don't know if it was more, but it felt better.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes you wake up on the right part of your sleep cycle, so you like wake up more refreshed.
Oh, do tell.
Is that a thing that's ever happened to you?
No.
There's like certain parts of
I'm still wondering why my my dog waited almost 2 years before he decided he doesn't like wet grass.
Oh yeah, Doug doesn't like wet grass.
Well, he used to be a normal dog.
Yeah,
it's
just out now.
Yeah, you would have laughed.
Like, that thing wet.
So, sprinkler system's on, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, we'll go out in the front. This dude walked all the way around the entrance, the curvy way, down the driveway. I said, go potty. He knows what go potty means, clearly. Goes down to the edge of the driveway. I was like, okay. In the winter, he has taken a duker on the cement.
Sure.
Never seen it before. Thought it was kind of weird. I was like, oh, it'd be cool. Although it's much warmer, a lot harder to clean up.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'll figure it out. No.
So wasn't having it?
Nope. Went down into the driveway and just looked at me. I said, hey, go potty. Dude just walked down the sidewalk a little bit. Only about 6-7 feet because he acts like we have an Invisifence, but we don't. That's why I'm just happy that he's he's super well disciplined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't no. And he eats before he goes. So like, okay, come on. So we walk back to the house. He's walking right next to me. Like, I'm not going to say he doesn't need a leash because there are some people that will probably get mad. Put your dog on a leash. But Buddha is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back to the original plan, which is to let him out back. This dude goes right down the stairs and he sits. Now we're talking 3 minutes. It's 35 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Just sits there. I know he has to go. He doesn't mess around outside. He goes,
don't put that crap on me.
This dude takes the sharpest right turn under the stairs, goes under the deck, and disappears for probably, 6-7 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know this dude waited for the sprinklers to go away from where he thought he was safe, which he was the whole time, to come back inside? I have no idea. There's probably some fecal matter under the.
Oh yeah, there 100% is.
And I'm just like,
%.
Where did he get so smart?
He's doing some good things.
I don't know. How old is he?
2. Going to be 2.
He's maybe the brain's developing a little bit extra.
But isn't he something though? Like, you've been around him now.
Yeah.
Like he is a stone cold trip.
And he's smart as a whip.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And it's Zoe's birthday. So sometime during the middle of the night, apparently her door got decorated.
Oh, okay.
And lots of other little things, streamers. Jay can make like $7 turn into 70. Okay. No, it's unreal how she can stretch $1. So it's 6:05. Shower. I'm in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Who is it? Zoe. Zoe, what are you doing up? It's my birthday. Why do you think? Yep. I said, see, that's why I don't like you. Go back to bed. No, I mean, I did say that's why I don't like her, but she's like, I just need to brush my teeth, wait for Mom to get back from her walk. This little girl brushed her teeth. I heard her spit twice in the sink.
Yeah.
And she's patting the sink because she knows I don't like when you leave toothpaste in there. So she must be using her hand. I go back. Eventually I come out and she's sitting on the front couch with the remote control in her lap trying to get to Disney. I said, this is going to be some kind of day.
I mean, listen, you know how.
This is going to be some kind of day. I'm like, where's Ravi when I need him with the tough hang? She's in here talking about she's getting Pisons, cheese pizza, and cinnamon rolls for her birthday. I said, what are you going to do with the candle? She said, put it in the middle, silly.
I mean, cinnamon rolls do lend themselves to candles because they got kind of little crevices there. You can just pop one right in.
Yeah. She's just.
It's my birthday. What do you think I'm up?
Man, it's like 6:16.
Yeah.
She's a kid.
Just rolling early.
And I don't want to see birds all the day. I don't have the temperament. What she called him on her iPad on Saturday. And she's like, Maddie, can I do cheese pizza? Uncle Maddie, of course, so. I was like, eye roll. Oh my God, now I got to see that guy. I didn't want to drive out there the other day to get. I had some frozen hamburger over there.
Yeah.
I needed a chuck. I really had to flip a coin on whether I go to the grocery store to buy it or go get what I already had.
You're worse than me when I am trying to decide if I want to do laundry or just like go to Target and buy new underwear.
Dude, you're Timo's. Why? Like, what's wrong with you bougie people where you just do that?
Because I don't know. Sometimes it's like, this is easier.
We were gone all day. I can't even remember. And we had another event at night.
Yeah.
We might have been at basketball or something or golf. Can't remember. And we were going out together. And he didn't want to get his clothes ready.
Mm-hmm.
So he stopped at Dillard's to get a shirt and shorts for the night. I'm like,
I've done that.
It's total first world problems. That is incredible.
Yeah, I've done that. You got to do it,
No, it's okay to plan ahead too.
Yeah, sometimes things come
Shane,
up.
Can you imagine being in a tax bracket where we just do that?
No. I'm pretty sure we're the same tax bracket. I just don't have kids. That's the only difference.
He does.
People, I know.
He has like
no,
34. He has like a wayward orphanage.
He's in a different tax bracket. People, honestly, this is the thing. People think I make so much money. No, I just don't have children.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like, I make middle class money.
So you think you and I are in the same tax bracket?
Probably not you, Shane. But
no, I was going to say
that's tough.
I was going to say if you think we're in the same tax bracket, you need to rethink what you're doing.
No, part of it's because I'm married, so I've got an extra income.
We're not in the same tax. I make half of what I used to. There's no way we could be in the same tax. Less than half.
I don't know. We can have that conversation later.
There's no shame. I mean, it is what it is.
I'm just saying, I think there's this perception, and I'm not complaining. I make solid money. I'm happy. My wife makes solid money.
I am very unhappy.
Well, I could always use more. But
do you know how long I circled the block contemplating coming in here this morning?
I don't have kids. That's the secret to appearing rich is I just don't have kids.
Shane, what time did I walk in here this morning?
About 6. You really want to know?
About 7:02.
I sat down and dude said 20
59,
seconds.
Yeah. I was preparing to be like, all right, I guess I'm doing the show.
So when I opened those double doors, what did I say to you?
You thought about not coming in today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
giving it some serious thought.
I was just mentally prepared.
And it's very, I mean, it's 20 minutes later than normal. Almost like 22 or 18 minutes later than normal.
Yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing a show by myself today.
Do you like that, talking to yourself?
No.
I felt like that was a lot of what was going on with Sports Talk yesterday. I was very, very upset. I was so upset. I called, and when I hung up with you, I felt like, did I just lecture that dude? I didn't want to lecture him, but I'm not. Like, I was upset.
I did feel a little bit like I was talking to my dad a little.
Yeah. It was a very bad day for sports media yesterday.
Yeah, you
for a multitude of reasons.
You seemed pretty unhappy about it.
So I get upset internally when I feel like, and it's fine, haves and have-nots have always historically played by different rules.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't believe what some people are allowed to say. And like, it's all to the good. Because what happens with that is, that's not my problem.
Okay.
My problem is the rest of the normal folks don't know where to draw the line. So they're out of pocket too.
Yeah.
Because standards don't get set. Right. So that's why people talk
crazy.
Just
because you see somebody on TV talking crazy.
Oh,
getting away with it.
Yeah.
Being celebrated.
Yep.
And then you sit there as a consumer and you go, okay, well, I guess that's just how we're talking about this. And so you start talking about it that way. Not you personally, but
yeah,
you.
Like, how in the world can Pat McAfee get away with calling Caitlin Clark a white bitch? Like, how? Like, in what world is that cool? Can you imagine if that was like Candace Parker and he's like, man, that black bitch, bro, you can't say that.
No, people get fired for that.
Like you can't say that. So what happens? Everything that happens after that has this
it comes within that context.
This venom of the context of how that was framed. I watched two adults argue yesterday,
mm-hmm.
and a guy throw a hissy fit. Stephen A. Smith and Monica McNutt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is like African American to watching another African American act. I'm like, see, that model behavior, that's why we act like that. That's why our defense mechanism is to get loud. Don't get loud. Just be smart.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to elevate to communicate. I said, listen, no. Listen to what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a very nuanced conversation. You were trying to cram that into, and I get it. We get right top of the hour, bottom of the hour, 12 minutes. We got a 14-minute segment.
Yeah, but TV's even worse.
So
right in terms of the segmenting.
This is his first rodeo.
No, he's been doing it for a minute.
This is his 212th rodeo.
Add another zero, maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
So
maybe a couple zeros.
It was just such foolishness.
I will say,
and I came to work yesterday.
Yeah.
I told you Sunday night. I go, this is getting out of hand. So I felt like I was way ahead of it.
Yeah.
And then yesterday happened, and it's still flooding my timeline. Like, it's still trending because people can't behave like adults.
I will give Stephen A. Smith credit in one sense, and it's what you were talking about with McAfee, right? Is Stephen A. wouldn't even repeat what Kennedy Carter had allegedly called Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
And so I'll give him credit in like trying not to perpetuate. Like, it is part of he felt like it was part of the context of what he was saying. So he kept using the B word, which always sounds a little silly when adults say, oh, the B word. But
I don't feel comfortable saying it. I said it because that's what was said.
Right. No. And I give Stephen A. credit for that, because I do think there are times, for as outlandish as he is, where he kind of like hits a moment of, whether it's him or anybody else, kind of hits a moment of like, I probably make this worse if I say X, Y, and Z, and not in a way that he wants to make it worse. Like, I think often Stephen A. is trying to make things worse for the product, right? But when it's not in the way that he wants to kind of light the fire, he usually does okay at backing off of it.
Sometimes, like, do you just like shake that stuff off, or do you feel like, like a part of it where you're
the first take stuff,
where you're like, well, we need to be better in the media.
Depends on what it
like
is.
we had media guys, we had media on kind of quasi media crime on media crime yesterday. A lot of people didn't like what Sam said, right? And then it turned into one type of media versus another type of media.
Yeah.
Like so we get do you feel that?
Sometimes. I mean, not yesterday so much with not with the Caitlin Clark stuff as much, because I'm not like, I felt the vitriol from them, but I didn't internalize that.
Did you think when we left yesterday, were you like, that's kind of a weird axe to grind? Like, why was he on that?
I didn't quite understand why it upset you the way it did. And then honestly, to be full transparency, we were talking about it most of the day after that.
I know, right?
We had like a 40-minute phone call.
Yeah.
And then we're texting about it all day. And I honestly, like, till the very end.
Were you like, this thing is like blowing up?
No, I was like, I don't quite understand why it bothered you as much as it did.
Because I'm in the solutions business, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so if you want to be able to handle stuff like this, when you get a phenomenon, I'm going to call it a phenomenon. When you get a phenomenon,
yeah,
like this, it's multi-layered. It's why I wanted like the NCAA, and keep in mind, like this isn't like past. This is like real time. I'm asking for this, right? Like with the Ed O'Bannon case, or when I'm having these conversations, and Shane remembers vividly, like there's a reason. Like when you leave the hospital, you have this thing called a birth certificate, and it needs a signature because your name is important to you, and why
it belongs to you.
It's yours. Like you get to have it. Like
that's why identity theft is a thing, because if somebody else takes it, it's a felony.
It's a felony.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I wanted the NCAA to get out of
to stop committing felonies,
to get out ahead of the Ed O'Bannon case. Like for years.
Yeah.
Right. I just try to. We get so complacent with sitting in the moment and being reactionary. We're never proactive. And I felt like, I can see this thing brewing. I know where this is going to go, and it's exhausting. Like I told you, I walked in yesterday. I said, I'm just over it because we haven't. We don't have the courage to define Caitlin Clark and the prowess. We couldn't do it in college. We didn't know how to handle it. We didn't know how to handle. Now it's even worse on the national stage. And this whole time, she hasn't said one thing for the Amis or the ammo.
No,
like it's us that doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah,
and that drives me absolutely up the wall when we just, oh, it's okay, it's just how blank is, or like we just don't ask people to ever be better. Like nobody just. Keep doing what we're doing.
So I think there's a couple things why we don't know how to handle the situation. Number one, most people are not nearly as familiar with the WNBA. I think that's not the.
Yeah, I got a little bit of that yesterday. Like, who cares? Apparently.
I'm not on the who cares.
A ton of people care.
I'm on the until recently. Not a lot of people cared.
Yeah, you sound like Monica McNutt, which is what bugged her.
It doesn't necessarily bug me, but I think when you've got people coming into a conversation new and without context, then the conversation often gets worse.
Yeah, like Candace Parker and people used to get knocked on their rear end. The welcome to the league.
Yeah,
listen, the Diana Taurasi's that went out of her way to be hard on rookies,
and that's not
Sue Bird being historically tough on new people in the locker room, like stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's not to say that I'm like, oh yeah, you should definitely beat up rookies or whatever. However, that's not to say that what is happening I think is a good idea.
Yeah,
but it is to say that it is not new in terms of this league and the way rookies are often treated. Now, because, and this is what at one point I was trying to say yesterday, was I think because of the lack of context in the league, people can come to it with new eyes and be like, hey, why is this happening? And people can tell them, and then the new eyes.
Are they asking the questions, or are they doing the dictating on the standard?
Well,
because I didn't hear a lot of asking the questions.
That's fair.
I heard a lot of, well, this is how it is. And I'm like, actually, it's not.
And that's a fair differentiator to make. But I think the question has to be asked if you're new eyes coming in is, hey, is this normal for a rookie to be treated that way? That's first and foremost, right? Is this kind of how it is? And then secondly, I can ask the question, Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if it is the way a rookie's normally treated, then we can stop with the Caitlin Clark's being singled out thing. And then the second question becomes, is this a good idea for rookies to be treated that way? That's a next part of the conversation. Because the other thing you have to deal with, specifically with Caitlin Clark, is she presents an opportunity for the WNBA that they have literally never had before.
Yeah, even they clearly weren't ready for it.
Right? I don't know that
which they share some culpability for as well.
I don't know that they were nearly prepared enough to understand the complexity of the Caitlin Clark situation, right? Because I do think there is resentment there. I think that's part of it. I do think there is part of it that is just, hey, this is kind of how rookies are treated in this league. And then I do think there's part of it where the WNBA was not nearly prepared for the phenomenon of Caitlin Clark, because they should be capitalizing to a larger degree on the fact that people genuinely do care about their league. And it doesn't matter that it's just one person that's leading that, despite what Angel Reese may believe. Like, it is one person leading that.
Isn't she something?
Like, delusional.
It's a good word.
That's why I'm positive there's resentment there. I can't crawl into anybody's.
Yeah, but you know what, though? Okay, let's say you're right.
Okay.
Let's say she's so delusional that she resents Caitlin Clark. She hasn't been there long enough for that to register on the meter.
No. But I think,
you know what I mean?
No, I do. But if I'm taking it from, okay, if Angel Reese believes this, there's likely players that have been there long enough that believe it also. So I'm making that leap. Now,
God, I smell amazing.
Congratulate. Did you go to Bath and Body Works?
I did.
This smells delish.
Guess what though? Pre-ordered online, got the 10% or the
you got the discount
on, and couldn't go in there and free spin. The package is already ready.
Nice.
I mean, incredible. I'd like to give you a hug.
So you didn't like,
but then you'd be like, this dude is weird.
I mean, we can.
I did that. I did that to Vers the other day when he came in here, and I smelled.
I care about you.
And I'm like, I know your hygiene is probably awful. How do you smell good? It must be a cover up. No, I'm just playing, but he did smell amazing.
I mean, you do shower like 8 times a day. So
I know. I do. It was extra long today. I was really contemplating some things in my head. I'm like, I need a chill pill or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it was just revving so high.
It seemed like you were revving high yesterday.
Well, and I
worked hard at school.
I'm trying not to talk to my kid.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And I mean, it's whatever, right?
You just trying to give Caleb space. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let him kind of get his footing, and then without being like a helicopter dad.
Yeah, we're going on. Oh, it's a couple days.
Yeah.
Outside of a good morning, and like we have a thing.
Yeah.
But I mean,
just like a quick check-in, make sure everybody's cool, and then leave it. I could see that being.
Wait, I just the response. Like, I don't know. Do we have a responsibility? Is there like really a standard, or is it just different strokes for different folks? Then social media and everybody else gets to say what they want to say.
Do we have a responsibility to what? To elevate the level of conversation?
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
I kind of feel like that.
I mean, given where we are, yeah, probably.
Right
now, people on social media with 130 followers or whatever, like maybe they have less of a responsibility. Doesn't mean they still shouldn't be better. We've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. Coming up on the show, we've got Alex Sindelar, Creighton baseball analyst. They've had a bit of a mass exodus this week.
Man.
Probably need to talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to recruit 30 players in an offseason, but Godspeed and good luck.
Well, better pound the JUCO ranks because as we talked about, there are plenty of good baseball players in the JUCO ranks.
It's almost like the players on that team were not a huge fan of how the coaching decision was made.
Wow. Yeah.
Is that a hot take?
No.
I mean, I feel like I'm drawing a pretty straight line there.
Yeah. No. Hey,
so there's no squiggles in there. It's just like
is the Northern Lights the one that like is like some sort of pattern?
Yeah, it's got the like
it's a little
wavy,
straighter.
Yeah, it's
Not the
yeah,
Northern
it's pretty
Lights?
direct.
Got you.
It's like Omaha to Lincoln, just boom, right on I-80 there.
They're pretty colorful, aren't they? The Northern Lights.
Shane, was I
They
coming
can be,
across
yeah.
as a little aggressive over the break? I was fine with that, right?
Over the break?
The North Carolina thing.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
fine.
I don't know.
All right. What?
We're certainly meaner to Shane and about other stuff, so I didn't think that
He
was
said
bad.
it would be 16 minutes. I don't believe that.
No, I said if I was to have taken a highlight from every team that won.
So why did you pick Evansville though?
Because that was the most interesting call, and it was the big upset,
Why
and
are
it
you
was
riding with him?
it was the hot take of the day yesterday. when it comes to that stuff.
Not UConn over Oklahoma at home?
Nah.
They looked like turds.
Yeah, just to make you mad mostly.
Probably. It was clearly the best game of the day yesterday.
It was, without a doubt. It was a great game.
That atmosphere, I just wanted to be there.
It was electric college baseball. Like, it was good. It was good stuff.
And I feel like that is the proper use of the term electric.
Yeah.
I think it gets over.
No, I think that's all.
Oh man, he's got electric stuff. This dude can't throw a strike.
He's Imanaga, soft tossing lefty. Alex Sindelar will be on at 8. We will talk some. Speaking of people that got all bristled up yesterday, our friend Jacob Bigelow, Jacob Bigelow from the Stretch Big podcast is going to join us.
Old Jacob wasn't happy.
No, he didn't like Sam's take on Nebraska Husker recruiting for basketball. So we'll get into that with Jacob a little bit.
Before you finish, how many people do you think agree with Jacob?
All of the basketball media in the state.
I feel like
all of the basketball exclusively basketball media.
I feel like he's in the 40%. Like he's gonna have more people that are riding with him than.
Oh, I know there's a bunch of people that are riding. I do. We'll also have Mike Schaefer at 9:00. I have been one of those people that sometimes struggle with the way primarily football journalists cover basketball in this state.
This is exactly what we're talking about with the WNBA. You realize that, right?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. That's why it's important to me.
But I also, and I didn't make that connection yesterday.
That's why it's important to me.
But I also think Sam was right yesterday. Like, full disclosure, I think he was right. We went through the list. We went through the Summit League Player of the Year list.
I know, but I wonder. This is, as you know, because you do talk to me more than most. I think it's part of my personality where I'm just going to, because you said something yesterday in the text. I didn't know whether to snap or clap. When you kind of gave me like a two-sided answer, but then I had to acknowledge, you know what? Two things can be true at once.
Yeah.
I just wish we would pick one in terms of what point you were trying to make, because I felt like you were letting yourself off the hook.
Do you remember which one it was? Because off the top of my head, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't remember which.
Well, it was
because we talked a bunch.
Well, it was the one I felt like where I literally said, "Stop sitting on the fence."
Was that on the Caitlin Clark thing?
Yeah. Oh, you go. I think there's something to not speaking about things you don't understand, but I also don't think you can shy away from calling something jealousy or resentment if that's how you're perceiving the situation. So do you either, in my head, I'm like, well, do you either want to be informed or do you just want to have an opinion?
Well, you can try and do both, right? But you're all like, because you started earlier and have a better context for it.
But do you think that's what it is?
Well, I think.
Okay, here, go. You go. Go.
So because of where you started with the WNBA versus where I started with the WNBA, I'm likely never going to understand the WNBA to the extent that you do.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm
sorry.
I can still call a spade when I go, hey, I recognize that behavior. I've seen it other places, and that appears to be resentment.
Okay. So my thing in that, it's basically how I would debate or argue. Get away from the specifics unless you need to. So insert NFL, Major League Baseball, college basketball. At what point, if they're talking about those things, would you have that same criteria for and hold yourself to that standard?
About the resentment?
Yeah. Like, it's not necessarily the resentment, but the background that you would need in said thing.
Yeah.
Before you would make excuses for the behavior. I don't want to imply that you're making excuses.
No,
before you would justify the lack of depth. Would it be college baseball?
College baseball's a decent one.
Would it be soccer? Would it be? Do you know what I mean? So at what point, like, would we not talk about? Well, you know how a soccer fan, they gatekeep. Like, you get into talking about the EPL or soccer, like, you better know about. Like, at what point do we not do? That's what I'm saying. Or at what point do we not? do we do that with the NFL or college basketball? Or
so I think there's a couple things at play there, and the one for me is like, okay, just because I think there's value in new perspectives on things, even if they aren't fully immersed in the thing you're talking about.
you want to grow the sport, right?
You want to grow the sport, and they may see things. This is kind of what I was talking about with how rookies are treated in the WNBA, right? Like I may come into it not understanding that that's pretty typical behavior towards rookies in the WNBA, and then I could say, oh well, why do they do that? Is that helping the league?
No, see, that's what I want. That's why I think you're letting yourself off the hook. Kevin, my buddy, he made a great point. He's like, yeah, it sounds a lot like how Jordan and Pippen felt when Kukoc was coming. Like we were giving ourselves an out. Like I don't like. I've never seen this before. I'm
right,
like,
but that's a great example. The Jordan Pippen thing is a great example, right? I'm not saying we've never seen him before, but it's a great example. Like if you know the backstory
great example, Kevin.
Good job, Kev.
Stop calling him Kev.
I can't help it.
I wonder if people do call him Kev, though.
I think everybody named Kevin gets called Kev at some point. Like that's just a thing.
Shane, did you talk to Melcher yesterday?
Yeah, he did not.
Did you call him Kev?
No, he would not have. He would have responded okay to it. I mean, we had a great conversation. A lot of Damon Benning talk yesterday.
Oh, I bet. I bet he's probably still mad that I was mad. But Sasha.
The Jordan Pippen Kukoc thing is a great example, right? Because if you are in it, you know the backstory of, man, Jerry Krause was kind of like yanking these guys' chains with contracts. Then he became enamored with this other guy, even though they'd already won championships and whatever. Then you're like, yeah, I kind of get the resentment towards Tony Kukoc. Mm-hmm. But if you're watching that documentary or you're watching it play out real time and you don't really have that backstory, you can come to it with new eyes and be like, why are they treating him like that? And then somebody can explain it to you. And you could still just be like, hey, they probably shouldn't be treating him like that. I mean, Michael Jordan himself says in The Last Dance, he goes, yeah, we probably took some things out on Kukoc that was really shouldn't have been on him.
How many times have we heard these stories? You ever listen to, he's arguably my favorite to listen to now, even though I think he flirts with, like, I don't know if I could take this guy anywhere.
Yeah.
You ever listen to Kenny Martin?
Not a lot, no.
He is incredibly authentic.
Okay.
Honest. I'm not even going to say right because it's his vantage point.
Sure.
But he talks a lot about his rookie year and what he wouldn't do as a rookie and how folks historically have been treated
a certain way. Yeah.
Yeah. Like these stories aren't new. Like they're not, it's not some super secret lock gate. What we were doing with the WNBA is we were acting like we could not for the life of us understand how a newbie could be treated like this. And the one of the points that I was trying to make is if we're on this kind of equality thing and understanding that these worlds collide and they're kind of nuanced, why couldn't the women's sports be like that too? Why can't they be hard on their rookies, even though they got a cash cow?
No, I understand that. That my thing isn't about the WNBA specifically. My thing is more, hey, if you're a newcomer to a sport and you notice something that doesn't make sense to you, you find out why it happens or that's just how it happens. You can still be like, yeah, I don't love that. Whether it's the WNBA, whether it's the NBA, like I don't love how Jordan treated Kukoc. I think it's crap. It wasn't Kukoc's fault. He didn't do anything. Like kind of like it's not Caitlin Clark's fault. She hasn't said anything.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We've got another spirited conversation happening in the YouTube comments.
This thing is incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, so I'm going to ignore all that and go to Betty.
So wait a minute. I know this is a vodka, but when Travis says EFF blank blank, he's saying the word, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He's saying a bleeping men TK.
This is pretty heated.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to ignore all the measuring that's going on in the YouTube comments and go to Betty here.
Well, I mean, this is kind of what it's about. I just think, like, I don't know, man. We going to get better? We just going to keep letting people off the hook?
Well, not a lot is getting better in the YouTube comments today.
Dude,
they're just
easy, fellas.
There's just it's a lot of
and ladies, which is totally cool. We have a handful. Let's go.
I appreciate that. We Betty says, I've been baffled for years. Women are our own worst enemies. We can't stand it when a strong, opinionated woman succeeds. We eat our own, which is beyond sad.
Betty, I hold my Gatorade because brothers are worse.
Yeah, I think it's all.
I don't know about worse. We're pretty bad.
I think there is a tendency within marginalized communities.
Well, very good. Were you a socio, like, psychologist?
Nope. I just read
marginalized is a fantastic,
because they're not always necessarily minorities, right? Like 50%.
No, listen, I understand.
So
you got to explain it.
But it is, women have been a marginalized community for most of our existence as humans, and obviously you've got the same thing with minority groups as well, and there is there's a really strange dynamic.
You know what we call it at the barbershop?
What's that?
Crab in the bucket.
What does that mean?
That means when one crab tries to get out,
you pull them back down.
They pull them back down. Like,
it's like, no, we belong in the bucket.
Yeah.
We live in the bucket. This is where we belong.
Where are you going?
Yeah. Like, you don't know. We're not getting out of the bucket. We're staying here.
Yeah.
And I don't know the psychology behind it. I really don't. I don't know if it is jealousy. I don't know if it is resentment. I don't know in the context of marginalized groups. I really don't. It's not something that happens as much in my community, but I'm also not like really plugged in with the Indian community, being totally honest. I am not religiously affiliated really with the Indian community. I'm not, I don't speak the language. And so it's hard to kind of ingratiate yourself if you don't have some of those common, despite the fact that my ethnicity would lead you to, I'm not lead you to believe it. It is part of that group, right? But my whole life it's been like, well, you're not really Indian. It's like, well, I am. My dad came over here from India, not very far removed, but it's because I don't speak Hindi or Gujarati or whatever. It's because I'm not a Hindu or a Buddhist or a Muslim. Like I have very little in common with a lot of the groups.
Have you ever thought about doing that? Like,
about what?
Speaking those languages.
Saying what is wrong?
Converting to
no, just
Hinduism? No. No, I mean, I learned a little bit when I was a kid, but there's not a ton of use for Hindi in my daily life, so it never really, not that there's a ton of use for Latin either.
I'm just glad Betty says it out loud.
They didn't teach Hindi at Miller North High School either,
because that's how I feel, right? Which is, and I get it. Folks are gonna like eye roll, but at some point, I just want to be better, which is the ultimate point, right? I said off air, like I didn't understand why Screamin' A. Smith went on his podcast to talk about what happened with Monica McNutt without allowing Monica McNutt the opportunity to explain.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't like that. Even when I interview, even if I don't like something, the floor is still gonna be yours, right?
I mean, yeah, you do it with me every day.
Why do we have we wonder why people act the way they do on social media and we treat people the way we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable how we just lack like just basic human decency.
Yeah. Like allowing Monica McNutt to finish her point.
Like you don't even have to agree with her.
No, because if you don't agree with her, it's really easy to dismantle her when she's done making her point.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be louder or talk over her or not let her finish in order to.
But I told you what our defense mechanism is.
Yeah, I understand that. And that's fine. But like
that's not a.
No, I know.
That's not an explanation. That is an excuse.
Right.
Remember, because I tell you the difference between an excuse is an explanation and an explanation is ownership.
Yeah.
There's no ownership in that.
And an excuse is something that like, oh, it's okay because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Which is what whether it's voting for awards, whether it's committees, don't let people off the hook if at some point you want it to get better.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I
just don't want to say, oh man, they're lazy voters. Ah, man,
but again,
it's the Board of Regents' fault. Guess what? Stop voting for those people. Like those are the kinds of things that I hate.
Also, turns out wasn't the Board of Regents' fault. Does not.
And I don't know if you paid attention to the voting last month. I mean,
nobody made any different decisions.
Yeah, we're not too unhappy. Votes looked a lot similar.
I don't know if it's not. We're not too well. But that was after Trev decided to keep talking, which is the worst thing he possibly could have done in that situation.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those. Hey, you ever been on like?
See where it goes.
You ever been on like?
Did you, Trev?
You ever been on like a sales call and they're like, "Hey, you made the sale. Quit selling."
Yeah.
Like Trev had the sale done. He had it all wrapped up in a bow. that it was the Board of Regents' fault that he left, that he was the victim in this situation, and then he just kept talking.
We needed to do something.
And that's when everybody, myself included, was like, oh, Trev, you might be the bad guy here.
We needed to do something.
Well, we did something. Upgraded an AD. Let's go. No, you're right though.
As the more I got into that, and peeled back the onions, I think there was a lot of this is a crazy analogy, so stay with me.
Okay.
There was a lot of especially for as measured as he is, there was a lot of I-course in terms of overcorrecting based on what you inherited.
Sure.
Right? Just generally speaking. I think because it had been this way for so long, instead of just, hey, what needs to be done, it was more about, I'm going to do it this way because it hasn't been done like this before.
Yeah. It's like, hey, we've got the meanie and Bo Pelini. Let's hire the nicest man alive in Mike Riley.
Yeah. Hey, because we weren't real hands-on,
we're going to be
hands-on.
Micromanage.
Hey, because we weren't good with some of these projects, we're going to be project heavy.
Super project oriented.
Right? Like, yeah. Because this was what I heard when I inherited this, I can't embrace NIL.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can. Like,
it's really easy.
Yeah, and they're trying to do a good job for you. Like
they're helping you out.
You need those folks.
Yes.
Set the personal differences aside.
Yeah. He's
for the university. Figure it out.
Yeah. If you're both trying to accomplish the same goal, you can figure a lot out.
Yeah. Right.
It's like personal whatever aside.
Well, do you remember? This is such an aside, but because you brought up Trev, I think it's very pertinent. Remember when I told you how I thought the very first thing Coach Rule said when I'm like, yep, he's going to make it. He's like, you know what? He's like, DB, these factions and these allegiances, like, I'm not going to be a part of that BS. Like, I'm going to do what's best for these kids in the University of Nebraska. If I want to go to a game and I want to go hang out with, Matt Davison or whomever else and have a beer and talk NIL, he says, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm not listening to, well, you can't do this and this guy. No, listen, if these guys are trying to help the program, it's my job. And he said, it's my fiduciary responsibility. And I loved it because I misused that word that term all the time. So it's my favorite. He goes, I'm going to do what's best for the University of Nebraska. We need to fundraise. And I was like, I came back to you and I said, here we go, giddy up. Like, he gets it. Stop worrying about what I say or VJ or Red or Foreman or Wiegert or like, have some conviction, do what you feel is best for the university in terms of positioning yourself to function at a high level, and let's go to work. Like, don't worry about if we're offended. And believe me, he couldn't care less.
Well, and that's a bigger deal than I think most people realize, because how often did you hear about pre-rule?
Oh man, listen,
the factions of boosters.
It was too much. It was too much.
What did we call the Lincoln Group? The Tradition Coalition.
Yeah.
Right?
It was too much.
And then you had the big Omaha money. Those were two different sets of people, right?
So I'm just like,
guess what we haven't heard about in about a year and a half?
None of it.
I haven't heard the term Tradition Coalition since about November 2022.
I'm telling you, man. Like,
haven't heard a word.
I knew we had a chance.
Right?
So like
because everybody's pulling in the same direction.
I just felt like it's about the university. You know what? If 1890 wants to, get into Omaha and figure out how to make it happen, listen, I want to help. If Matty hit me up and he was like, hey, give me 20 minutes. Hey, come on. Like, I couldn't listen. And he said it to me. He's like, listen, we both want the same thing. Let's figure out how to make it happen. All right, man, I'm in. I couldn't care. Like, I just don't understand what makes that so difficult.
Because we let our emotions get in the way. We let our personal preferences get in the way.
So you cut people off. That's why we don't know how to handle it in the. That's why we don't know how to handle it in the media, though.
Yeah,
because we just can't, like, oh, that was different. It's like, do we always have to be offended? Like, what's the end game? Like, where are we trying to go?
Whether it's offended or hurt or whatever, right? Because I think we throw everything under offended sometimes. It's not always that. Sometimes there's other emotions involved, but it's when we let the emotions get the better of our reason where we end up not doing what's in our own best interest.
Well said.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, which we barely got back to before the...
I have a question, though.
Yeah, what's up?
Oh, you're back, so never mind. If you're not in, I don't want to be in.
No, I was trying. We're having some internet difficulties.
Shoot. I did not want...
I know you don't like being in the stream.
No, it's fine because the stream is gas today.
Yeah, it is. It's turned up to a 10. Who's usually also turned up to a 10 is our guy
A-Train?
Alex Sindelar. He's a Creighton baseball analyst and all around good dude. Alex, what's going on, bud?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just driving down the road. What are you guys doing?
So we were trying to guess where you would be this morning when we wanted to bring you on yesterday. Where are you?
I am headed to Pleasanton, Nebraska, which is just north of Kearney.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Pleasanton. I'm looking it up because I've never heard of it.
Yeah. So it's right by Amherst, right?
Correct. Yeah. So it's
let's go, DB.
Little golf course called Prairie Hills. I think it's the greens at Prairie Hills, and heading out there to demo some equipment. But we got rain on the way, so we'll see. I don't know. Might not work out.
It's supposed to rain today?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I guess I need to.
Hey, it's coming.
Listen, Alex, I know you thought I was a little slow. I'm super slow. I had no idea. I need to put the cover back on my TV outside.
Do you need me to have my mom add you to like the weather group text?
Yes, put me on the weather group text because I'm clueless. I don't even know. Alex, listen, I don't even know what I'm doing at 12 noon today. Do you think I know what the weather's doing? Like I am such a leaf blowing in the wind right now. It's maddening.
Man, I used to pay attention to it like every day, every second of the day. And now I'm just like, if it rains, it rains. It's no big deal. It's whatever.
That's because it was like your literal job, right? Was to know
correct.
the weather.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's
this side, like you cared about the weather this side of anyone who's not a meteorologist, basically.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the rain a lot back in the day. So whenever it did, how sparingly it was a day to celebrate.
I love the
now
rain
it's
too.
like yeah. Now it's like, all right, cool. I enjoy having the 5th wettest May in the history of Omaha. It's nice.
We had to play catch up. I don't want my yard brown by the first week in July, A-Train, okay? It's just bear with me. But speaking of weather, though, what's the temp gauge for what's going on with the baseball team? I know a lot of the parents, man, this mass exodus, did you see this coming?
I really didn't. I didn't see it. I thought there was going to be a few guys who would enter the portal, but I didn't think it was going to be, guys like Malachi Vitak or, Connor Capisi. I mean, the roster, they don't have any catchers on the roster anymore.
Yeah, Helixo, no-go.
Uh-huh. So you lose 10 players to graduation, and so you expect a little bit of attrition there. But to lose, I mean, now there's 8 players that have filed to transfer out of the program. And I mean, you could see why. I mean, it's the uncertainty with who's going to be their coach, who's going to be their assistant coach, who's going to be their head coach 2 years from now. They don't know that. They don't have those answers. And so when you get recruited by a coach and suddenly they're, it's kind of looking like they might get phased out or they didn't get the head coach in waiting job, then there's just so much uncertainty. I didn't think there was going to be this much attrition, but I also didn't think that they would quite make this move to have the head coach in waiting position open up, basically an associate head coach position for one season. It just didn't sit right with me when they made that announcement. And now that, obviously the response from the players has been overwhelming. And I think you're going to see a lot more going into the portal as well. I don't think we're quite done yet. Especially as they go into summer ball. But yeah, I didn't quite expect this, and it's kind of jarring. And it's going to be tough for them.
Level of surprise at the pushback over Coach Gondesi's departure, and kind of what that means for the program, considering he was so heavy-handed in the recruiting.
Yeah, and officially, he's still at Creighton. I mean, he's still employed by the university. So officially, Kendrick Gandasi, he's still technically the assistant, associate head coach. But knowing that he did the majority of the heavy lifting in all of recruiting of these players.
That was a little premature. My apologies.
No, you're all good. Now that you can read the tea leaves. I mean, if you're a human being and you understand business and you understand how this is working out, I mean, if Connor was their guy, then they would have announced that. They would have said that straight up. But you can read the tea leaves a little bit, and you can kind of see that he's not getting that opportunity. And just kind of surprising to, especially with a guy like Mason Cook, who was he was an all-state pitcher. I mean, he was probably one of the best headlining players coming out of that class a couple of years ago, and to see him departing from the program, and I think Connor had a big, he played that recruiting system really well to pull him into the program and keep him away from Nebraska. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Mason go up to Lincoln. But yeah, I think this is really worrisome, A, for the university, but B, for Coach Service as well. I don't think he quite saw this happening, but he just doesn't have the same relationship with the players that Coach Gandassi does. So you can kind of see why that response was and is what it is because Connor, he was able to, grow those relationships with those players. He recruited them. He made phone calls to them. He got to know them on a personal level, which is what you need especially out of an assistant coach, but it's also good head coach material. You kind of want to be that player's coach, especially in college ball. And Ed, he's a great baseball man. He's a great baseball mind, but he just doesn't have that same relationship with them. And so, for this to be the response, it's not really that surprising, but it is shocking just to see how many players are, kind of bailing on the program.
We're talking with Alex Sindelar, he's Creighton baseball analyst. So, I mean, like you said, as officially speaking, Connor Gandassi still with the program, but you look at what you said, right? Okay, so he hasn't been named the head coach in waiting. There's obviously limited spots on a staff, right? And
what he's been there. Is this his 7th year hitting coach?
I think so. And the mass exodus of a bunch of the guys he recruited, pretty easy to, like you said, put those tea leaves together and be like, yeah, it doesn't seem like he's long for the hilltop there. Like, just from your opinion, you don't have to give any inside information here if you don't have any or don't want to. Like, should Gandassi have gotten that opportunity to be the head coach in waiting and take this team over next year? Because there's a decent amount of evidence that there was a pretty good roster, and I know that the Big East results didn't go the way they would have liked, but it didn't seem like they were super far off from getting to some of their goals. And now in a one-off sitting duck head coach situation, like, what does the team even look like next year?
So this is the third assistant coach that Creighton's had that has been kind of soft promised the head job when Ed was bound to retire. It started with Spencer Allen in the early 2010s, and it kind of looked like that he was going to take over the reins for Ed, and then Ed stuck around, and then Spencer Allen left. Then you get a replacement with Rich, who's now down at Central Florida. It was kind of the same thing. He was a really good head coach minded person, and you could kind of tell that he was going to take that next step, except Ed just kind of hung on a little bit too long. And now Connor's kind of going through the same thing. I think he definitely deserved the shot. But the problem that you're looking at now, if you're Creighton, is that if you lose Coach Gandassi, it's like you're losing your main recruiter, and now you have all this roster attrition. And it's like you can't recruit players right now. I mean, you might be relying on another assistant, but officially it's like you don't have your head guy. And so if you want to go into the portal or if you want to recruit players now, you really don't have anybody that can do it. And so that's kind of the scary part of what Creighton's looking at now. It's like, okay, so you're losing all these players, but you don't really have a guy to go out and replace them. So, I was listening to the show earlier, and DB was talking about mining the JUCO ranks and, trying to get a bunch of JUCO guys. But, for all those JUCO guys, you also have to understand that they're going from a junior college to a school where it's, $47,000 a year for tuition, and they're only getting a partial scholarship.
Yeah,
that's tough
good.
to recruit.
That's good point. Good point.
So, you can fill the roster with JUCO guys, and you can just load it up with just these wild animals coming out of the JUCO rank, which would be, it would be incredible theater. I think it'd be awesome for Ed Swansong to be, full of these grinders who just, they don't really have a lot of structure where they're at now. And so to fill the roster with those kinds of guys, I think it'd be really entertaining. I think it'd be really fun. It'd be really different. But I don't think that's the way that Ed really saw his career ending at Creighton.
How much of the way that we feel about this has to do with the way that we feel about how Coach Service carries himself? Such a professional, always good with wanting to represent the program, at least publicly with the media, right? He makes himself accessible. He's been such an ambassador. Is there like, are we in our feels a little bit about the conflict of just Coach Service, the person?
There might be a little bit of that. I think it's more of a soft Vaseline over the glasses feel to this, right? I mean, yeah, he's won so many games, and I mean, maybe not so much in the postseason, but he has been at Creighton for 25 years. I mean, he's an ambassador for, when the College World Series comes to town, all the news stations, news channels, whatever. They go to Ed to talk about baseball with him, when the College World Series is here. So it's like, it's tough because he does have a legacy, and I think he does deserve to go out with dignity and respect. But at the same time, it's like, what do you want best for the program? What do you want best for the program going forward? And, to lose so much of today, to salvage what is tomorrow, I think that's kind of a tough blow, and it's really a double-edged sword, right? There's no real easy answer to this, but I think to spurn another assistant coach for the head job, especially at the end, when it just seemed like that Coach Gandazzi was kind of, he was the front runner for that gig. It feels like this is fumbled a little bit by the athletic department, but I don't know, maybe it'll work out really well. It's hard to tell. It's college baseball. It's, we can sit here and worry about it, but you never know. They might just bring in a bunch of studs and kick some butt. So it's hard to say.
Do you think there's anything at all? I mean, I know you kind of mentioned about Coach Service holding on longer than a lot of people maybe thought he would over the years. Like, do you think there's any part of this where he's having a hard time setting Creighton up for the future because he's not totally ready to not be a part of that future?
I don't think Ed's kind of that forward thinking kind of guy. I think, he relies on his assistant coaches to recruit guys to bring into his program, right? Into his coaching style. And, they get guys that, maybe are a little unpolished, and Ed's supposed to be the guy, the baseball mind, to polish them, to make them better, to make them a better player, make them a better person, all these things by the end of their career. And, that was the big draw. I just don't think that Ed quite has that touch with the players today, where you need to be a little bit more open with them. You need to have real serious conversations with them about life and about all these things, where Ed's mind is just, it's geared towards baseball. He's a baseball mind. He's a baseball guy. Like, he's old school in that way. And I think that worked for a really long time. But I think now as you look at your current college kids, in this generation, I think they definitely need to be heard when they want to speak their voice a little bit more. And I don't think Ed's quite there. I don't think Ed's quite that guy. And so that's why, of course, I mean, he had to rely on his assistants, but I don't know. We'll see. It'll be really interesting to see what the future looks like next year and who they get for this, head coaching waiting position.
Is the blow softened at all? This may be crazy, but St. John's highly competitive. We see what UConn did running through the Norman region. Does that calm the trepidation a little bit, or is this just more, what we need to handle what we're handling here at home, regardless of the postseason success of the conference?
Yeah, I think the postseason success certainly helps. I think it helps just to bring the conference, into a light that it really doesn't get. For UConn to go in, and I thought they were underseeded going into that Norman Regional to begin with. I knew they were talented. I knew they were good. But to see them do what they did in Norman, it wasn't surprising. But I mean, Xavier was even in that large team too. I mean, they were kind of a bubble team, and had they won it all, you probably would have seen 3 Big East teams make it to the tournament. So, to elevate the conference a little bit more, I think will help in the long run, because it'll shine a bigger spotlight on the conference itself, and so it might make the head coach search, the head coach in waiting search, a little bit easier because now the conference is a little bit more competitive on a national stage.
That's our guy, Alex Sindelar, Creighton baseball analyst and, traverser of Western Nebraska. Alex, we appreciate it, and I'll see you this weekend. All right, bud?
You got it, guys. Enjoy the day.
Thanks, Alex.
Good.
What do you guys got going this weekend?
We're gonna hang out a little bit. You want to come?
What are you doing?
I think we're gonna watch the finals.
Oh,
NBA.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Matty D is gonna be there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Padilla.
My neighbors.
Yeah. You make a little.
Well, at least Jacob.
Are you guys going?
At least Jacob and Jacob are.
Make a little group hangout of it.
That's a lot of blue.
Well, as everybody knows,
I feel like Duvall and Sean Penn, man, is the police in colors.
As everybody knows,
I am a nightmare walking.
You're a Creighton honk now. So,
yeah, well, not, but.
I mean, I'm surprised they didn't name it the McDermott and Benning Championship Center.
Yeah, congrats to Coach Mack, too.
Yeah, super cool deal.
Yeah, listen, I have zero complaints. He treats me with the utmost, and big coach.
Which is how he became a big private school guy.
Yeah. And you met his guy, his partner in crime. Did you meet AC when he was here?
No, when was he here?
He it's kind of his personality. He just was kind of in the background. He had his son.
Oh, at the party?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I met him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
See, you never introduced me to the important people. You're just like
super dude.
Gus.
Well,
Gus
now I've got
here.
Now I've got to. Yeah, it was wild. Now I got to talk to him because once again the NIL and baseball talk comes up.
Yeah,
we had it with Nebraska. Now we've got it coming up with Creighton. If you want to be a player,
yeah, if they want to field a roster this year, he's going to have to do some work.
We should have cut up that interview from Coastal Carolina. I mean, he just washed his hands of this deal.
Yeah,
on the way out the door, he said, "I will not miss the free agency of college baseball."
Well, kind of is what it is. And it's been in baseball longer. The no sit-out transfer has been in baseball a long time.
Yeah.
Way longer than everybody else been dealing with
100%.
It's the NIL part that is a little bit new. Let's get to the Hurrdat hotline here. We got Terrence. What's going on, Terrence?
Hey, Ravi, how you doing this morning, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
T-Mac, what's up, buddy?
I'm doing well. I got to make sure that I say, let you know that I am that mediocre Texas basketball fan. And I had to take my medicine once we got knocked out of the tournament. And DB, good morning to you, man. The one thing I want to tell you, it's so funny to me listening to you on the radio, DB, as you talk about how prideful you are for what Matt Rule is doing. We've had so many conversations where you have said, it shouldn't be this hard. Yeah. It shouldn't be this hard. Yeah. Like, why? What are we doing? So it's so funny. Like, I mean, I shouldn't say funny. I can hear the joy that you have. Like, you got a true leader, in that seat. I told you from the jump.
I forgot how long you and I have been talking about what's ailed this years, yeah. Right?
And I told you from the jump when you got hired, when you get a guy that's an East Coast guy that's from Texas, where I'm from, or he goes down to Texas to coach, and they embrace him like he's from there, it has to tell you a ton about the type of guy that guy is. He left, and they still freaking love the guy.
Yeah, he's a real one.
It's good, man. So the reason I'm calling, I've been really kind of looking at this Creighton card thing, and I think it's super crazy. And I think, though, that there's a huge divide between the people that love her and the people that really don't care for her that much. And either way, they're still tuning in. And I think that's something that the WNBA has to capitalize on. There's people that, they think that she shouldn't be as popular as she was. I said it in the comment, some people are like, hey, I'm gonna prove to you that you're not even that good. And I just don't know what we expect for professional athletes to do in the moment, like during a game. You're not going to bow down to her. You're going to play her as tough as you would play anybody else. Mm-hmm. And there might be a little added juice just because of the accolades and the praise that she's getting, that she's earned. That's the one thing I always try to make sure I tell people. She's earned it. It didn't just appear out of nowhere. And I think even as you go back to college, as many people that tuned in to watch her win, there were a ton of people that I know that tuned in hoping that she would lose because they were tired of the hype. So I've been following, the WNBA for a long time. I told you, DB, my favorite player going back was Ivory Lotta. That's kind of when I fell in love with basketball. And the thing I would always tell people is if you go back and look at like Candace Parker, Sue Bird, and Diana Taurasi, their first years in the league, you're going to see a lot similar to what's happening to her. They were putting those girls on their behinds a lot more than she's getting now. And again, I'm not for cheap shots. I think that's wrong. But I think some of the people that are just tuning in for the first time are just realizing, oh, these girls play basketball for real. Like this isn't a joke.
I wanted to say yesterday, do you know who's probably laughing? Candace Parker. You know how bad she was treated as the pretty girl in the NBA, at the WNBA, and she was really, really skilled. But it's almost like the WNBA was mad at her because she was pretty and light skinned, right? So it was like they went out of their way to be tough on Candace Parker. She came from Tennessee, like she was the poster child. Like I've seen this before.
Right. And again, like I just said, some of these people that are just tuning in because she has brought them to the WNBA to watch, I don't think they realized or they knew that, hey, this is the way the game is played and this is the way they're going to treat rookies. I saw someone say in the chat, hey, they're not asking her to pay a $30,000 meal bill or lunch bill or dinner, for the entire team, which I guess we don't really know that. But this is just some of what comes with the territory. And I think she will adjust and I think she'll be fine. But for those that were expecting that she was going to leave from college, come here and just go scoring 90 points a game, like that just wasn't realistic. And I think that's all those people that were, in the league already. That's all they were trying to say. I've been through this. I'm telling you, it's not that easy. That's all they were saying.
Were you vibing with me with the crab in the bucket thing after Betty's comment? I get it. Women think women are tougher on other women. I feel like the brothers are too.
Oh yeah, I for sure, man. I think sometimes because you don't see as many that look like you in those positions, sometimes it's like, hey, I want to be first, and I got to make sure that I get there before anybody else gets there. And there is a lot of that.
When they don't realize if somebody gets in that position, it's going to be way easier for everybody else.
So other cultural groups have figured it out,
right? Like that's the thing, though, right? Like that's the
other cultural groups have figured that out.
That's why I say when people act in their own, not in their own self-interest.
I appreciate you, T-Mac. Thank you.
Thank you, Terrence.
Yeah, no problem, man.
That's Terrence. Good call there from Terrence. Coming up here, I think we're going to fight with Jacob Bigelow a little bit.
I don't know if Jacob's a lover, not a fighter.
Well,
apparently we're neighbors, so I might have to invite him over.
He's a neighbor too?
Yeah.
He lives next to all the Jacobs.
So Jacob and Jacob Padilla, they live next to each other. They're in the same complex.
A lot of Jacobs in that apartment complex.
Mind blown.
A lot of hoops in that apartment complex as well. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, and reminding you that wearing your seatbelt prevents injuries and saves lives, but only if it is worn properly. Make it click. That's a message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. We're going to try and not make it click on our guy Jacob here, like hanging up on him, because that would be rude.
There's no way.
But Jacob Bigelow is joining us now because Jacob had some feelings about the way.
Listen, hey, don't let him. I know this is our first time talking to you. Don't let Ravi paint you into a corner, Jacob. You understand? Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. No, I'm good. I'm happy to be making my debut with you all this morning. I don't know if the circumstances are the most ideal, but I'm here.
We should have called you. We should have called you during Bill Walton's passing. That's when we should have called you.
Yeah, no, that would have been. Yeah, I would have gladly talked all about that too. But no, regardless, I'm happy to be with y'all.
Do you know who loves talking Grateful Dead music? Shane Schillerberg. We'll talk to you about the Grateful Dead.
Really? I didn't know that. Wow.
Oh, come on, Shane.
How did you become a deadhead, Jacob?
Like my father before me. It runs,
like literally. Literally.
Yeah, runs in the family. As we're getting ready to get on a plane to Vegas tomorrow to go see the new iteration at the Sphere on Thursday. It'll be should be pretty fun. But yeah, looking forward to that. No, I asked my dad over the weekend if he remembered how many Grateful Dead shows he'd been to in his youth, and he goes, some number between 30 and 50. And I'm like, that's quite. And I'm like, that's quite the range there, but I'll take it. That's an answer. There we go.
So before we get into this, this is my ice breaking moment. So I'm pulling my trash out the other day. It was like Monday. And I'm walking back up to my house, and from behind, I hear this, "Hey, stranger." And it was Jacob Padilla walking in my neighborhood. And I was like, what in the world? And he goes, yeah, I just live in the complex across the street. Jacob Bigelow's over there too. And I go, wait a minute. You guys, we're all in the same neighborhood? What is going on?
No, I mean, it took me 6 months of living in that complex to know Padilla lived a building down from me. So that tells you, how long it took. But no.
Or just how social you guys aren't.
That too. That too. Wasn't gonna indict myself too much, but no, he posted some picture of someone's bad parking job, and I texted him. I'm like, hey man, I think we live in the same apartment complex. that looks familiar. I've seen that building. I walk by it every day.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
All right, Jacob, before we get into basketball recruiting, I got to ask you, what's it like being part of the worst adult slow pitch softball team of all time?
It's fun. I'll tell you that. It's fun. We got run ruled again last night, but we had a damn good time doing it. That's all I know. We had fun. We were laughing. We saw there was an instance in the final inning of the game where Jack Mitchell declined a pinch runner and scored from first on a double.
Wait a minute. He waved off a pinch runner?
Yep. He took a pinch runner his first time when he reached on an error, and then he reached on an error again and said, nah, I'm staying. And the next pitch gets deep to the outfield, and he was scored all the way from first. He might still be out of breath this morning, but I mean,
he's probably the type of guy that waves off ball screens. No, man, I got
ISO.
I can't wait to mess with him about that.
He's like Jeremy Lin waving off Kobe. Let me cook.
Let him cook.
We're talking with Jacob Bigelow. He's a contributing writer for Huskers Illustrated, also host of the Stretch Big podcast. All right, Jacob, so let's get into this a little bit, right? So we were talking to Sam yesterday, and he made the assertion that there were some good players coming out of the state of Nebraska in the high school ranks that ended up not with the Power 5 offers, Creighton, Nebraska, really no one else locally here. So they end up going to Summit League, whether it's NDSU, SDSU, wherever. And he's like, hey, you should probably be offering these guys out of high school, with the point that, he's probably playing the results game a little bit. And you see they end up being really good players. But also, maybe Nebraska's not in a place to be turning down guys that really good programs, even if they are in the Summit League, even if they are Summit League type players that other programs want them. And you didn't totally agree with that, judging by the DMs that I got yesterday. What is your argument?
It was shocking to hear out loud him be so matter of fact. But again, like Ravi said, he could see where Sam was pretty valid. And I said afterwards, Jacob, you could tell that was a tone and a manner he took from the years of criticism that I think he'd been hearing.
Well, that's fair. And hindsight is obviously always 20/20, right? But I mean, and it's an unfortunate reality of, the new, college basketball. Like, you hear people refer to, the Summit League, the Valley, and leagues like that as they're basically developmental leagues for the Power. Well, what was the Power 6? Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore, so now it's back to just being the Power 5 in basketball. But and that's kind of like that's what it's become. Like that's real, and I think it's irresponsible to say that if Baylor Shireman or Frankie Fiddler or even Sam Greasel or any of these local guys,
Mike Dom,
that if they're Mike Dom, I think it's irresponsible to say that if they were at Nebraska or at any power school right out of high school, that they would have been on the same development track. Because I think you can't say that they would have projected the same way, that they would have developed the same way, and that they would have been on the same path. I mean, obviously, we can look back now and people will say, "Oh, Frankie Fiddler was under-recruited. Oh, this guy was under-recruited." But they were recruited to the level that they were ready for at that time. And then they got to that level. They made the most of it. They worked their what's off to develop during the season, in the off season, change their game, and that got them to the point where they earned the opportunity where there'll be four guys from Omaha that played at Metro high schools that'll be on Big Ten rosters next year, and it's because they earned it. They worked it, they earned it, and that's a credit to them. And that doesn't have to become an indictment on any program, in my opinion.
So let me ask you this, Jacob, because I think that's fair, and I made the same point where with Doug McDermott in Iowa State, right? If Doug McDermott goes to Iowa State instead of Creighton, does he become Doug McDermott? I don't know. Like the developmental path is a fair thing to bring up. But at the same time, aren't we sort of making excuses for Nebraska not being good enough at developing players?
I don't think I'm trying to make excuses for them. I think in the last 2 years, especially, they haven't been in a position where they've needed to win games. Yeah. Like that's what they've looked at, constructing their rosters going into this past season and the season before that with Greasel, Bandamel, and those guys.
But this goes back way before that. I mean,
it does. It does. You can't make excuses for how the first 3 years went under Fred Hoiberg. I mean, you can't make excuses. It was like it was. I mean, you had the guy who you're paying way too much money to be your lead recruiter, going to the wrong high schools when he said he was going to go see Omaha kids. Like that's, there's no.
Wow! I can't believe you said that.
There's no excuses like to be made for that.
No, that would be the school down the street. That's where you want to go.
Yeah. He's not here. He's at the other place. The other. He's kind of a big deal over there. Yeah. He's not here. But wow. And to do that and then go. I mean, he was going on radio shows down there saying kids from around here aren't good enough to play in the Big Ten. I mean, all sorts of whatever. But that guy's gone now. He's dropping bags for Rick Pitino, so he's not Nebraska's problem anymore. But there's no excuses. I'm not trying to make excuses for how the first 3 years went. In the Fred Hoiberg era.
That is Jacob Bigelow from Husker Illustrated and the Stretch Big Pod. Jacob, we appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it, Jacob.
No, thanks, fellas. Always good chatting with both of you. Thanks.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back.
Game. Top 10. Gage jumps, payoff. On the ground, center field, base hit. North Carolina leads. A base hit, Gavin. Chapel thrill. On line right field, backing up Brown at the wall, can't make the catch. Go ahead, run at second for Carolina. Gage jumps, payoff. On the ground, center field, base hit. North Carolina leads. 2-2 in the air, center field, Honeycutt back.
We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We appreciate Jacob Bigelow joining us there for a second. But I think it brings up an interesting point, that whole recruiting conversation, because he brought up the idea of these guys just working their tails off, right?
Yeah.
And that being a huge part of the equation of their development. And I agree.
Yeah, because I think his main point was don't hold the players' effort to get better or work on their game as an indictment against Nebraska. I think that was his point.
And that's fair, but
is that what you got out of it?
I think so.
Okay.
But my counter to that would be, hey, maybe we should be trying harder to figure out which guys are wired that way. Because if you see
having a recruiting profile,
yeah, like we hear about with Nebraska football, where they're trying to find guys that are built a certain type of way, not just physically, but mentally as well, to be able to handle the rigor, to be able to do what they're told and not need their hand held and all these other things, right? Like you can also get that in terms of, hey, is this guy going to be in the gym all the time getting better? Is it likely that this guy is going to reach his ceiling, right? Because I think the tendency in recruiting is to be like, hey, I'm going to get this guy who, even if he doesn't develop at all, we can still get something out of him, rather than looking at a guy and saying, hey, we can help this guy maximize and we're going to get a ton out of
I
him.
could
because
see
of
that being more baseball than I
think it's
basketball and football.
Basketball a lot. I think it's basketball a lot because people don't know how to develop basketball players. I think a lot of coaches don't know how to develop in general very well.
I don't know. Like, really?
I do, yeah.
You're not recruiting Larry. Like, we see this all the time.
Now, Creighton's been incredible at developing
but
people.
they're certainly not alone. There you go Creighton, you go Baylor. I mean, Baylor has guys. Now, granted, they've especially lately have had a little bit of a run on 4 and 5 stars.
But for a long time, they were recruiting. But that's the thing that I loved about Villanova.
But like Sochan and those guys, Villanova, there's several of those schools out there.
But there's a lot more, I think. There's a lot more, and maybe not all at the Division I level, because I've seen it at lots of different levels, where you don't have the confidence in your ability to develop guys, and so you just go and get the guys that you think currently.
Purdue, tremendous at develop. Like,
sure,
there's several.
But you're also talking about you're naming the best coaches in the country.
So now we're putting Matt Painter in that discussion because that would be new to me. But okay, I get it.
I mean, I get that he hasn't won at the highest level.
I mean, kind of. It only took Scott Drew 20 years to win a national title, but sure.
But he was really.
We're putting him in that discussion.
I mean, we didn't put him as an outlier when we were looking at guys that won national titles.
No, but that's because we had history on our side. Like the conversation, like what took him so long?
I mean, they got good. They just didn't get to that level of good for a long time.
I think he's the beneficiary of revisionist history. He's held in a lot higher regard
because he won a national title. Sure.
Because there was a stretch where he's like, man, this guy can't get over the hump.
Same thing with Jay Wright, though. Jay Wright, the narrative on Jay Wright totally changed after he got.
But do you know why Jay Wright? I think it's the asterisk.
What's that?
Because we didn't perceive his recruiting talent. I argued with you 2 months ago about the guard play in the backcourts that were going to Villanova that are still playing in the league, and you talked about that's not what they were coming out of high school. That was the program at Villanova.
They developed him.
So I think he gets a little bit of grace because he wasn't getting like high-end guys like we assume are going to Waco over the last handful of years.
My point is, I think you named a handful of programs, and you're right. Those programs do a great job of developing guys. I think there are a lot of programs throughout the country and a lot of programs that get good guys.
Like who?
Kentucky, Arkansas, pre-Calipari even. I think USC is a really good example that gets really good guys that don't really get any better.
Arkansas has 2 or 3 guys right now that are playing in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
Between the Celtics and the Mavs.
They've also been recruiting at a really high level under Musselman. Like, we see a lot of these high-end guys that get recruited, and maybe they don't have as much room for development. That's fine.
I'm going to look that up because I don't want somebody to call me on that. But my gut says there's at least 2, maybe 3 NBA guys on the roster that play.
Arkansas guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Keep going.
And that's fine. My perception of the way college basketball recruiting goes is you find guys that you think can help you right now, regardless of if you're able to develop them at all or not. Now, there's other programs that operate differently, obviously. But I think those programs are the outliers, not the norm. I don't think in general,
for sure, Gafford,
coaches are very good at developing at that level. I think and I don't know if it comes from the AAU stuff. I don't know where it comes from, where it stopped being about developing guys. But the places that have track records of it.
Jordan Walsh. So that's 2 for sure.
The places that have track records of it are the ones that are consistently most successful. And the ones that have track records of it are the ones where you consistently find, oh, they got this guy. He wasn't really high recruited. And they got this guy. And, oh, now he's in the NBA and he wasn't much. Those are the programs that find those guys. So I don't want to let.
You mean that have that adhere to their recruiting profile, right?
Yeah.
Like okay. Because I'm with you there. I definitely think there's something to that, which is why, not the reason, but another one of the reasons why I like Coach Rule. Like, there's specific types of kids he's recruiting, which is why I never got into he's not this star, or Guthrie wasn't offered by this guy, and everybody. They had all these jokes, right? Mm-hmm. See, it's not cute now. That's why I love watching people make these definitive statements real time going through like the recruiting process or when we're valuing something, because it's, well, nobody else is offering these guys and we're making this as a reach. And He doesn't have these offers and all. Why is Nebraska his best offer now? And I'm just thinking, guys, it doesn't really matter kind of what we think. If you're confident, just stop me if you hadn't heard me tell this story before.
Mm-hmm.
If you're confident in your recruiting evals and you're good at developing, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. Everybody else thinks. So you have to wait to see if that pans out or not. And we said, and I specifically, you were like, well, we'll see if that risk pays off, right? Do you know that much more than everybody else? Are you that good at what you do? Like, we're willing to let that play out.
And I'm not saying they don't.
No, I know.
I
know. Yeah, that's fair, right? Like, we're willing to let that play out. So we'll see if he's crazy like a fox or he's just crazy. But at the end of the day, I do think there's a persona or a profile of the mental makeup
which is the part we don't talk about.
Which is the part that he's looking for, which is music to my ears because, and you're around me so much. This isn't new to you, but talent is the last thing that I talk about, whether I'm talking about high school guys, whether I'm talking about college guys, or even in the pros where everybody has a minimum baseline of talent. I always talk about how they're wired.
And I think in college they have to have a minimum baseline of talent too, right?
Yeah.
But
there's just a lot more variance.
Right. There's more variance because there's different levels of college and stuff, right?
I'm always going to look for guys. Yeah, somebody asked me the other day, just yesterday, about outside linebacker, Kansas City. Merritt.
Oh, Dawson.
Live streaming recruiting visit.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and I was honest, right? And I want him to come to the University of Nebraska. So hear my heart, but we can have multiple truths at once, right? I'm going to go Monica McNutt on you. A couple things can be true at once. Like, I can want him to come to Nebraska, and that can also be a red flag for me.
A thing that you don't love.
Yeah, I don't love it. I didn't love the fact that his dad is a defensive backs coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's having Twitter conversations with
people that aren't on his team.
Yeah. From the Cincinnati Bengals, who you're kind of developing this little budding rivalry with over something you easily could have over text.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because my radar goes up. Because for as much as I love Nebraska, I don't love guys that appear to love being recruited more than they like playing football. And I'm admitting, I don't know how much either loves playing football. I don't. I've never met him.
Yeah.
But I'm just using deductive reasoning and having an opinion real time. So I don't want people to like think what I think. I'm just telling you why I think the way that I do. Like, whether it's high school. Like, why do I prefer Teddy and Anthony over some other more high profile guys? Because I know what I'm getting from an aptitude standpoint. Even Mike in the car said yesterday, he was talking about Teddy, and he's like, man, we were talking about mindset because the freshmen were with Coach Samanji. We were lifting yesterday, and he goes, I just like how he wants you to just keep doing it over and over and over again. He said, it's like Teddy, even if you missed a tackle, that dude's going to keep coming. I said, you know what? Those are the guys that there's just no guesswork. Right? You just like, until their body breaks down, you just assume
they're going to give you X, Y,
they're just going to keep giving it to you. Versus, a high-end guy that may tap out because he didn't like the way he got tackled early in the game, and he doesn't play for his coach the rest of the 3 quarters.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want that guy.
Right.
And I'll never take that guy.
Because even if he's a 10, if you only get him for half a quarter, what good does it do you?
Or if he's going to act like a 2 because he's been a baby because the game isn't going the way he wants to. Yeah. I see it all the time. And I just can't mess with those guys, right? So it's like, that's why I'm willing to hang in there over somebody that I think is just going to just show up every day. Because 90% of your competition and your 80%, they won't. So they won't. They're going to find something else different to do. They'll quit. They'll go to another school, or they just won't be the best versions of themselves. That's like 3 out of 5 people you come in contact with. They won't hang in there. So be that guy, and you already have an advantage, regardless of your talent level. That's just my personal.
So if you can identify that guy,
but that's why the recruiting profile matters,
right?
Which is what we probably ought to stay with.
We've got Mike Schaefer coming up next. Speaking of recruiting, here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Covering Nebraska football and recruiting for 24/7 Sports. Here is Mike J. Schaefer.
Yeah, that's a grown-ass man right there.
Mike Schaefer.
I don't know. There could be bacon involved.
Mike Schaefer.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks, Brian Edwards, for me.
Here is Mike Schaefer.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, here on the Pillar Exterior Stage. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets, whether it's at the casino in Lincoln or it's at Horseman's Park. They're in Omaha. What do you going to play some bets on fights, or what are you doing?
Nope, there are no good ones. We got fight night. That's it for UFC.
Yeah, nothing interesting coming up. If you placed bets on my old guy Deontay Wilder, that wouldn't have gone well for you this past weekend.
No.
But you can always. We've got NBA finals starting up. We got NHL Stanley Cup starting up here this weekend. Lots and lots to try and win on if you're heading over to Warhorse. Make sure you go to warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook. You get a full list of details and house rules. That's Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory. We still efforting Schaefer there?
No, I'm looking right at him.
Oh, he's here?
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
He got position, and I saw him. He fixed his beard. He's looking good.
We got the Cleveland hat rocking. It kind of remind me a little bit, not to bring up bad memories, but the weather delay with the Huskers on Sunday kind of reminded me of a weather delay in the World Series that didn't go somebody's way.
Wow, look.
Schaefer, how are you this morning?
Hi, guys. Have a good show.
As if we hadn't had enough of that.
I'm sorry, that was totally unnecessary. I don't even know why I did that. It just, I don't know.
Mike,
how you doing,
Mike
Schaefer?
J? How you been, man?
I'm good. Can I just want to comment on something. I've noticed this before, but it seems even more pronounced. I know you guys are sitting right next to each other.
Yeah.
But the way that the camera looks on screen, Damon looks like he's 2 feet tall. Ravi looks like a giant. It's just, I don't know, just because the camera's pulled out. It just looks, Now, that's an optical illusion. Now it looks like Ravi has 2 arms and one's coming out of his hip.
Dang, 2 feet tall. I felt like that before, but I think I got to be pushing. I'm taller than you, Shane. But
no.
I got to start with the huge news. 4 years, $140 million. You couldn't be the coaching staff that let Jefferson get away, but how are we feeling about that commitment to payroll?
I mean, I think they had to do it. I'm obviously massively biased, and I could listen to arguments on other wide receivers, but I think he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. You've obviously committed to building your offense around him, and you now have a young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold if he were to go, with a Baker Mayfield level resurrection. They need Justin Jefferson in that offense. Jordan Addison's better because of Justin Jefferson. TJ Hawkinson's better because of Justin Jefferson. Kevin O'Connell's offense, being able to call offense, is better because of Justin Jefferson. And I think that he is as big of an enhancement talent as you could have for your offense in the current environment of the NFL. And he's worth every dollar, because the 50-50 balls become like 75-25 balls when he's going up to get them. And you have to commit multiple resources to him as a defensive coordinator, which opens up things for everybody else. I don't think this is a Super Bowl contending team, but I think the idea is that you want him around to see if J.J. McCarthy is the guy. If, you do have something happening in Minnesota there, then you obviously want a talented wide receiver for him to be able to at least start his career with. And it felt like a no-brainer. I think the biggest thing was finding the amount that he was good with, that Minnesota was good with, that was going to make him feel valued. He wanted to set the market, and he absolutely did.
So who do you think is happier, like Brandon Ayuk, or maybe that Deebo Samuel, you may have to take a look at moving him, because Waddle got paid, and he's a year after those guys. Jefferson got his money. Ayuk
it's
may have
Lamb, right? It's CeeDee Lamb's got to be looking at that and all right, Jerry, give me the Ezekiel Elliott contract.
I don't know how you could do Dak and CD at the same time.
I don't know.
Dak may have to take a pay cut if you want to keep that deal around, because the big guy's contract's coming up here. They picked up the 5th-year option on Parsons. I don't know how much money they're going to commit.
Yeah. Someone's going to pay CeeDee Lamb a lot of money. That was a guy that going into last year, I was like, he's pretty good. And he kind of found a different level, I thought, last year.
Yep.
He was really, really good. I went from thinking he was kind of that second level wide receiver to he's right there with the rest of the creme de la creme of the position.
I need CeeDee Lamb to be really, really good, because Severe and I got into a knockdown, drag out fight on why he was my wide receiver 1 coming out of that year in the draft. So I need CeeDee Lamb to keep getting every ball that Dak Prescott, for at least for now, in Dallas throws.
Who was his 1 that year?
It wasn't Judy. Was it Waddle?
Was Ruggs also that year too?
Yep. Yeah.
So it was Lamb, Ruggs, Judy.
It was
Naylor, Rager, who the Eagles took.
And he never liked him.
I remember not being excited about Justin Jefferson. That's where I'm at in life. I wasn't excited about that pick.
I loved Rager. I'm like, oh man, creative offense. He can run after the catch. I didn't realize that you couldn't throw him the ball more than 15 yards away and he couldn't catch it. But maybe they could just hand it to him. You can't be on that many teams in your rookie contract if you're Jalen Rager. But we were talking about something interesting here, Schaefer. In your world, I know it's probably easier for you because you can talk to the guys and maybe get a feel of their personality. But how important do you think this whole recruiting profile is? Recruiting a player that has whatever it is that we're looking for in a player versus like the outward physical attributes that maybe some other teams don't see. Like what's that mixing of those worlds look like for you when you look at good recruiters?
Well, I think it's always important if you're, recruiting, you're assessing, does this guy fit our locker room? I think that's always I think that's an important part of it. And I think part of the transition for Matt Rule was, and we're going to use the big C word here, creating the culture where you have a locker room of guys that have respect for one another, that can play with one. Then there's obviously going to be differences inside every locker room. Like there's not everyone's going to think the same thing or have the same opinions or whatever it is. But I do think it's important that when you're looking at recruits, you're also identifying and evaluating personalities. You're evaluating fit between the position coach and the player. You're evaluating fit between the player and the locker room. I mean, there's been some talented guys that have come to Nebraska and since I've been covering it that just weren't personality fits for whatever reason. We're going to be too shy or too brash, weren't going to get along with anyone, potentially just maybe lack the social skills to be able to engage, and that puts you in a tough spot. So I think that's always a part of it. I don't know that it's the end-all, be-all, but you certainly, when you take these commitments, it's with the idea that they're going to be part of something, that they're not just going to stand out on their own.
We're talking with Mike J. Schaefer from Husker 24/7. Schaefer, what do you think is more important if you're a developmental program, the way that Nebraska says they want to be? Is it identifying the end product that a guy needs to look like in order to be able to get him there, or that mindset piece that we're talking about of how a guy is wired and how he fits?
I don't know that you can. It's one of those tough either or questions, because you need a combination of both, right? Like you can't have just one but not the other. But I guess to me, in order to be a developmental program, you need everyone sort of pulling in the same direction. So if you've got that one guy who's just going opposite of everything you're trying to do, or the one guy who just doesn't fit with it's just not going to work. He's not going to develop in the same rate. I think in the way that Nebraska wants to build, the kind of example of it is when a developer goes and buys a neighborhood and puts up a bunch of houses that are, mostly similar. It's the same developers, it's like you're trying to do, there's some differences in there, but you're putting up the same development, the same neighborhood. You wouldn't just have someone, build a McMansion in the middle of a $180,000 to $200,000 starter home neighborhood. Like it's just I think you're trying to keep things similar because the way for it all to come together has to be similar. And then some differences can emerge, in there too. But I just don't know. I just don't think you're going to have a lot of success if you have someone come in who can't go in the same direction that you're going to go. It just seems like, especially with Matt Rule, who tends to kind of call these guys out when they come from in the transfer portal, when they, I'm thinking of Mazuka. I'm thinking of some of the other guys that they've had. he sort of says like they don't know how it is to work like we do. They don't know, and so it's
even inheriting Tommy Hill, right?
I mean, I think it's assimilating to the idea of what you are, because no individual is going to be bigger than where you want to go. I think that's a primary part of the Matt Rule process.
It's pretty amazing that you said everybody pulling in the same directions. I go back to listening to, and I asked some of the recruits that you talked to, Schaefer. I thought there's two people they need to take on the road with them. One of them is Corey Campbell. The other is Kristen Coggins. Like, if those two could get on the road and go recruit and do their pitch, it'd be wildly successful, because pulling in the same direction, they're so confident in what they do. There's just certain measurables that they think that they can get you to, whether it's your muscle mass, whether it's the weight that you can carry versus your maximum output, whether it's the certain benchmarks that you can hit at top speed versus your ability to maintain versus, weighted balance off of one leg versus two. They have all these metrics, and they'll show them to you. If you get to here, you stand this chance of next level. This is where next level guys are. Trust, just do what we tell you. We'll get you there. The nutrition matches up with the strength and conditioning. It matches up with the staff. They know that, like a Kai Wall, like, you can just tell that, okay, he's 2 years out. He's 1.5 years out. He's kind of ready to play like Umame Wellen, but he has a few deficiencies. So while we're situationally using him, we'll put this guy in his, it's like you can, that's a fantastic point you made about everybody pulling in the same direction, because I think we assume it, but we've seen from some other staffs, there's no way that it's always that case.
No, I mean, just to use the last staff as an example, it wasn't even that way with something like recruiting. I mean, you had guys going out and accepting commitments at positions that weren't theirs for players that the position coach didn't want to it just, if you don't have that, and you were talking strength and conditioning, and in my head, I was thinking about, okay, this all works in the same operation like a restaurant, like your front of the house and the back of your house. All of it needs to work together so everything looks the way that it should, which means the position coaches have to sort of work in a way that fits with what Matt Rule wants, because that all lines up with what Corey Campbell and the nutrition staff are doing to build the players to put in front of the position coaches. And then if you extrapolate that out to the players and you go into last year, for example, that if you are all moving in this direction, if the guy in front of you goes down, you know what you're supposed to be doing because of what he's been doing in front of you. So you're going to start emulating that because he's emulating what's in front of him. And you have natural growth in that progression because you understand it's supposed to look like it's a, like it's a moving line. I keep using different metaphors, but it's like a factory. I mean, there's just piece after piece, just line assembly. That's sort of what they're trying to do. That's how they want to build this program. And obviously you're going to have some special pieces in there that elevate everything else. And that's where, we can get into some of the Dylan Raiola conversation, but they have to continue to develop that. And again, if you have multiple or even just one going the other way, it hurts the overall production.
So I'm glad that you both brought those things up, because that's why I framed the question in the way that I did. Because yes, pulling in the same direction is incredibly important, but what direction is that, right? That's where the end product and knowing what that looks like becomes incredibly crucial. Because if everybody's pulling in the same direction, but the direction's off by about 10 degrees, you don't really get where you want to go.
Yeah. So,
right?
so Coop, for example, this is one that came into my brain when you were describing the coach thing and waiting. It's like, let's say this is a total hypothetical, but Schaefer, is this not what you're talking about? Like when you get to the player, let's say you move Hartzog. Okay. All right. We're a little thin at corner. We got to move Hartzog right now because he's ready. He's ready to go. He's got game experience. But in the meantime, Campbell and Kristen and those guys know, okay, for Jeremiah Charles and Ethan Nation, they need to get a little bigger, a little stronger. So that's their focus. While we're buying time with Hartzog, okay, guys, are we cool? Let's get Nation and and I'm again, this is
Jeremiah Charles, whoever.
Jeremiah Charles. Let's get them a little more bigger, a little more bigger, a little bigger, a little more physical, and everybody's on that same page. So if you ever get to a point where you want to move Hartzog back, you are already thinking that, okay, now it's Charles or Nations or Boodles or whomever. It's their time now because this is the facet that everybody was on board with their development. Like, is that
yeah, I mean, you're essentially you're
everybody.
building on the back end, so you're ready the next time you need to replace a piece on the front end. I mean, that's sort of what it is. I mean, that's the kind of development that people have claimed to be clamoring for. Like, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to set it up so that when you lose pieces, because college athletics is nothing if not losing pieces, you don't get to have these players forever. You have to have people ready to replace them. How do you replace them? It's not as simple as just going into the transfer portal or going into, getting a recruit. They have to be mentally ready. They need to be physically ready. They have to have been tested to a degree. They have to have shown you that they're able to do it. And then you put them in and you see how they do and you follow that and you see where that growth goes. In the meantime, as soon as that person moves up, there's somebody that needs to be behind them so that chain keeps moving. I mean, that's the whole process.
So, Schaefer, the next links in that chain are going to start coming on campus this month. Another big June for Nebraska. Who are some of the names that you're most interested in, both in terms of their profile and in terms of guys you think are maybe right on that border of being ready to commit?
I think you got some obviously interesting people coming in. That last weekend in June is just huge. You've got your committed guys are going to be here. I think you have some guys that are going to be on campus where it's a lot of just like, all right, we're here to kind of check that box, and then we're either going to announce while we're here or we're going to announce shortly after we're here. Jamarian Parker is certainly someone I'm keeping a lot of attention on, the running back from Cardinal Ritter Prep that was committed to Arkansas. I think Nebraska is in a good spot there. Yeah. There's an offensive lineman out of Hawaii, Houston Kahina Torres, I believe it's how that's pronounced. I would look for him to be potentially part of this class. He just visited Michigan State. I think he's got one more trip. I want to say it's Arizona. And then he's coming to Nebraska on the 21st. He's been talking about this Nebraska visit for like a year now. So that feels, if the door is open, that one feels good. There's a whole bevy of guys coming in, and then you've got the guys that already sort of visited, like Dawson Merritt might be the most interesting recruit that Nebraska's after right now. And you're in a 1v1 battle with Alabama, who's going to have him on campus this week. And, I thought there was a chance where things had gone so far. I thought there was a chance that maybe Nebraska could try to pull that commitment before the Alabama visit even happens. But they're certainly going to be working on that throughout. So June is going to be a really, really busy month. And that's to say nothing of all of the camps and the guys that are going to be coming in that are going to try to get offers at these camps. Like we saw last year, some of those guys are going to end up on the official visit list. It's a big month for your in-state players that aren't committed to you yet. You got Christian Jones and Chase Lofton,
Christian's the 14th.
Yep, and Chase is the 21st, I believe. I think the kid from Platteview, whose name
Ryan Ziebert.
Yeah, I change his name in my head every time. I was going to call him Robert Ziman. I don't know why. That's what I was going to do. I cannot. I apologize to him and to I cannot get that name straight to save my life. So he's just the kid in Platteview until I can nail that down. But they have an opportunity to kind of stack some commitments here. It wouldn't shock me if it's a double-digit commitment month in June, because I think the final checkoff is coming for some of these players.
You think I would know because I could simply ask him, but I don't, because it's just not the information that I want out of him. But you think Merritt and Jones are connected or no?
I don't think it's a take one and don't take the other situation. Now, I can't speak to if one commits before the other, would they be as interested knowing that person is there? But I guess I don't see why they would have to be remotely adversarial in terms of how they could help Nebraska. If they're both interested in going to Nebraska and they both want to play for Tony White and play linebacker for Rob Dvorak in this defense, you can use both of them. Nebraska is not at the point, and I don't know that Nebraska will ever be at the point where you're looking at guys the caliber of Christian Jones and Dawson Merritt, and you're like, well, we only need one of you. So, from Nebraska's perspective, you're recruiting the hell out of each of them. It's harder to say for them internally, but here's the thing. And I don't remember, it might've been Chase Lofton I was talking to last week. And he said this about the tight ends. Cause I asked him Nebraska took 45 tight ends in their class last year. They've offered $1 billion this year. They already have a tight end commitment in Bear Tenney. Like, what does that tell you about the tight end room? He goes, well, it tells me that they want talent. And if I want to go there, I'm going to have to work to compete and play. And that doesn't bother me. And so if that's your mindset, if that's your mentality, I don't understand why either Christian Jones or Dawson Merritt would have a concern with the other one it's doing. I think they'd welcome the opportunity to have more talent in the room because it means your team's going to be better.
You just had boots on the ground watching local guys. What were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, Isaac Jensen wasn't even there. And Millard South, just like Jet Tamala, has 6'4" or bigger targets that he can throw to at any time. And then you have a Marion Jackson who's not as tall, but he is no less talented. He's a guy I'm fascinated what box he didn't check for the local staff. I don't know if it's a speed thing. I'm not sure what it is. Certainly don't get the sense that he's going to show up in camp and try to earn an offer that way. But he's a talented guy. Every time I've watched him play, I've come away impressed by his kind of he wins a lot of contested catches.
Yes, he does.
And I think he runs good routes. I think he has good hands, and he wins a lot of contested catches. He also, and I don't know if this is a Nebraska thing. I don't know if this is just how he always carries himself. There's a little bit of an edge to him that I kind of like.
Spot on.
I like the edge. I like that it's like he's got a voice in his head where he's always hearing his doubters and he has to prove them wrong all the time.
That's his dad, boy.
That's how he comes off, and that's how he plays. And sometimes when you play angry like that, you can be a pretty good player. And so I was impressed what they have going on at Millard South. I didn't watch any of I watched a lot of 7-on-7 stuff with them. I didn't watch the offensive line, but Amarian, he called me over. He's like, you got to talk to Carter Glab. I met Carter Glab, and I texted you about him. And this is a guy that's got Power 5, or not Power 5 anymore, Power 4 schools, Power Conference schools, reaching out to him, wanting him to camp. They're interested in him. He's an interior offensive lineman in the 2026 class. So he's a guy that I will be keeping an eye on going forward. Jet Tamala, I'm fascinated what that looks like, where teams kind of settle in with him. I don't know if he's necessarily a power quarterback, but there's certainly teams that are interested. Iowa State, Northwestern, Nebraska all want to have him out camping and to see what he has going on. And then I was also over at Central, and Elijah Wayne and Ike Ackerman jump off a little bit there. And those seem like
big fans of both, Schaefer.
Would not be shocked if Nebraska comes away offering one of those guys here this month during camp. I don't know if both are going to get an offer. I don't know if it's an NIL scholarship type deal. I don't know what it would be, but I think Nebraska likes both of those guys. And I can see why they like both of those guys.
Neither guy needs a babysitter, Schaefer.
Yeah, well, they're both just stand-up grown men. I mean, and I don't want this to come across negative. There is a different conversation you have in my job when you're talking with Torrey Pittman and Kylan Haney, who are 2027s. They're just going to be sophomores, and how they're talking and what they're saying versus when you're talking to guys who are conducting business and view this and have been through the ringer a little bit and don't have those early offers the way that Haney and Pittman do. I was super impressed by Elijah Wayne and by Ike Ackerman last week, and I'm excited to see kind of what they can do with Central this year with that defensive front. They've got some big guys in the middle. They can push some people around, and then you have two potential edge rushers that are going to be hard for offensive linemen in Class A to control those guys. So, and then of course I mentioned I saw Haney and Pittman, and it was my first time putting eyes on Pittman. I mean, he's got a presence. That guy, you can tell that he can play, and I'm really intrigued by him. Looks like he's going to be a defensive back at the next level. He seems to have a lot of attention already sort of coming in from different schools who are are intrigued by him. And then Nebraska obviously has made the offer. And then, Haney is funny in our conversation. A lot of it was there's only one football, but there's multiple of you central running backs. And he's like, no, I'm the guy. I'm going to make sure I'm the guy. He made it clear that the only way other people were going to play is when he put Central in the lead, that other people could come in. And I appreciated that. I liked it. I like some of the brashness. You don't always get that with Nebraska kids. So when you do, I do appreciate it.
That's Mike Schaefer from Husker 24/7. Schaefer, we appreciate it as always. We will catch up again next week.
Thanks, Schaefer.
Thanks for letting me run long.
That's Mike J. Schaefer. We'll be back.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We are back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. And if you're not downloading the podcast, listening to the podcast, that last segment's a great example of why you need to, because we got an extra, 2-3 minutes of
With
really good local recruiting stuff from Schaefer there at the end after we went through the break, and make sure you go and check that out.
The thing that I love about that is it's why I've always liked him, because the boots on the ground thing, and how I feel about Ackerman.
Mm-hmm.
But Elijah Wayne is a guy that and I know people that know me will be like, well, because Micah and his little brother are literally best friends.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about multiple sleepovers. We used to be neighbors until I moved over to the south side. And, well, he lived in a good neighborhood. I did not. But anyway, close enough to like jog. And he's a guy that you're going to be hearing a lot about. And people are going to think, where did he come from? Really good player, big, strong. He hoops for him. He's probably 6'4", almost 6'5". He's 220, 215. and he's an amazing kid, right? Went to school with his dad, played against his dad in high school, went to college with his mom in high school or in college, which is where you go to school with people in college.
Typically.
Right? Yeah, right. It's like, hey, I'm going to give you the NBA list of the top 5 NBA guys as opposed to the NHL. But he's a guy that you're going to hear a lot about. And I know we have them in week 5, and they're rapidly becoming one of those teams that people are excited to play against, though, because what happens is it's like us or, Bellevue West back in the day or North, or when you get sick of hearing about like talent and stuff, and so you want the opportunity. Central, they're not quite Millard South yet, but they are rapidly becoming a team like Millard South, where people
they're probably a year away,
are chomping at the bit to play.
Yeah, but they're probably a year away from being Millard South. In people's minds.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, and they open with Bellevue West.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's going to be tough.
Did Bellevue West ever really get that?
Yeah, there was okay. That's fair.
I mean, like last year, I don't think they did.
There was a stretch, I would say 2 years ago.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Where people really wanted to
play they wanted to take their shots. Yeah. But last year, despite...
Not so much.
Yeah, it was weird.
Because
it was you guys.
Well, I think some of the shine
had come off.
Of... But I think it's for a multitude of reasons. I don't... Bellevue West wasn't near as prominent like on social media, and they weren't kind of as out there. I think the staff kind of dialed it back and were like, we got to get back in the lab. Like there's some things that we need. So they didn't draw as much attention.
Like Eminem, back to the lab again. Oop,
yeah.
Oop, there goes Rabbit.
Speaking of Eminem, did you look? It's the low hanging fruit of the Eminem Caitlin Clark thing. I was like, here we go. This can't get outside ourselves. And I get it. I'm not taking a shot at you because I know you wanted to use Eminem as a reference.
I used Elvis because my grandma loved Elvis. So,
so let me just real quick. I'll finish the high school thought. Like, I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be fantastic with.
But you think Central has a target on their back probably next year?
Whoa, they have it now.
Yeah, but it's going to be work.
And you know why?
Why?
It's similar.
The offers.
It's similar to Caitlin Clark. Yep. The attention.
The offers, the attention.
Yeah.
You got the freshmen that get offers.
Yep.
Kind of puts.
And I think others. Yeah.
You think other schools go like, hey, we got.
I just talked to 2 coaches at the coaches.
We got good freshmen
that were upset that a couple of their guys.
How come my freshmen don't have offers? How come my sophomores don't have offers?
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Like, oh, you're just skipping over 2026 because you like these guys in 2027?
Yep.
These guys in 2026 pretty good too.
So there's some good. There will be some good battles.
So I will say, I know that there was a lot of, and we'll get back to the recruiting thing here in a second, because I do have a question for you that kind of ties into a lot of things we talked about today, whether it's with Jacob or Schaefer or just between us. But I do think there is something, and I talked about this yesterday, and I know you didn't love the Pat McAfee stuff and the way he went with some of it, but
let me qualify. I like Pat McAfee, what he said, because he almost used the exact same example I did. He didn't use Vandersloot, and he didn't use Elena Deladon.
Yeah.
Because I don't, his producers probably didn't give him the information.
Yeah, they probably didn't give him those.
And Deladon's Deladon's taking a year off, and because she's got health issues, and Vandersloot has fallen a little bit, but he did use this isn't the first time I was shocked. I was like, I guarantee you, I know he doesn't listen to our show.
You don't know.
And I didn't want to give him any credit, but he.
So here's that, but that's
I didn't like him calling her out of name. I didn't like the fact that he reserved the right to just call her out of her name either.
Yeah,
because that's part of the problem of the disrespect.
So I do think though, the point that you made, the point that he made with we've seen these types of players before.
Yeah,
it does go to the point I was making with the Elvis thing. He used Eminem. I used Jackie Robinson. I used Michael Jordan to show that it wasn't just a race thing, right? Like that might be a motivator for some people. I don't think it's the primary motivator here, although I don't want to disregard it as something for some people that it may.
Somebody asked me yesterday if it would have made a difference if Caitlin Clark would have gone to
somewhere
South
outside
Carolina
the Midwest
or UConn and not been like typical Midwest.
And maybe.
And I was like, it's a good question.
She stuck out more at Iowa than she would have at some of the other high pro. Like, we don't, like 2 years ago, her and Paige Beckers were in the same conversation.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I get health wise with Paige was a different thing, but I do think there is something to the palatable ambassador of a thing, right? And that doesn't mean they're better or worse. It means they're the right person at the right
You're talking
time.
about the part you touched on yesterday.
Yes.
Like if somebody's going to be anointed, will we swallow?
Are we ready for it?
Okay, yeah.
It's the right person at the right time. It doesn't mean it's the best person. It means it's the right person at the right time, because Michael Jordan wasn't any better, worse, or indifferent than like a Magic Johnson. Like, I mean, he is a little better, right? But like for the most part, right, you're coming in.
Not when they came on the scene.
No, right.
You could make the case.
Magic was more highly touted coming on the scene.
Yep.
You're right. A lot of people, and then you got this backlash, right? It's like,
Really?
Yes,
Over Jordan?
Yeah.
100%.
Magic was like anointed coming out.
Just coming off the national championship.
The battle with Bird.
He was the first pick. I mean,
Even with Jordan hitting that shot, though?
Yeah, but that was 2 years before he came out of the draft.
And he was
the third pick.
There were guys that went before Jordan. In
Who were
draft.
the two guys that went before him?
Sam Olajuwon and
Sam Bowie.
Oh, okay.
So you've got this right person, right time thing, but you have people, I remember at the time and even later, where people go, well, he's not better than Dr. J, or he's not, like, why does he get the attention and Dominique Wilkins doesn't? Why does he get the attention Clyde Drexler or whoever, right? But it's because he was the right guy at the right time. Now, Michael Jordan also happened to end up being Michael Jordan, but in the late 80s, when people became obsessed with, like mid to late 80s, when people became obsessed with him and his shoes and everything else, like we didn't know he was going to be the GOAT at that time. We just were attracted to this person for that reason. Same thing with Steph Curry.
What year did Come Fly With Me come out? Was it? It was in the 80s because
I had that video. That was a great VHS.
Coach Huffman and I watched that thing 55,000 different times. And the 90s
like 80,
weren't up
89,
yet.
90, something like that.
It wasn't 90. It had to be close enough. It had to be in the early 80s.
Who's this by?
Come Fly With Me.
Come Fly With Me.
It's a VHS video.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't even wait for Jordan to get to GOAT status. He just was winning scoring titles. And had his episode at the Garden. He hadn't really won anything.
Right,
yet.
yeah.
That video was far and above and beyond anything else that any other documentary to that point
89.
had been before that. There was no other sports documentary like that at that point.
But that's kind of my point, right? Is like Michael Jordan, especially coming in at that point in his career, in 89, nobody's taking Michael Jordan over Magic Johnson in terms of in terms of scoring, yeah, but in terms of as a whole thing.
And we didn't know that they would meet each other in a couple of years.
Yeah, we didn't know anything about what the rest of Michael Jordan's career looks like. But in late 80s, Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson were, if anything, Magic Johnson had the edge. But Michael Jordan was the right guy at the right time. We talked about it yesterday with Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson was the right guy at the right time. He was not the best black baseball player.
Uh-huh.
Baseball wasn't even his best sport.
Yeah.
Right? Like, same thing, whether it's, and sometimes there is a racial component, like an Elvis or an Eminem, right? Eminem made it easier for certain people to digest rap. And then some of those people started liking all kinds of rap, right? And some people just liked Eminem at that point. But there is something to the palatable ambassador that I don't think we can discount with Caitlin Clark. I just don't think we can I don't think we can just
I
chew
get
it
it,
aside.
right? Because you have to get in the who's the consumer, who's actually consuming the product, right? And if you have enough of mainstream that fits with what catches mainstream's eye, you're getting those dollars too, right? Like NBA YoungBoy or Young Jock or Lil Baby isn't gonna capture
the same demographics
that are gonna have disposable income that say Eminem would.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. And
I understand.
I do have to say, Angel Reese, it's not because of you.
I still can't get over her.
I'm sorry. It's not because of you, Angel. We'll finish up the show here coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
All right, right field. Backing up Brown at the wall. Can't make the catch. Go ahead, run at second for Carolina. Gage jumps, payoff. On the ground, center field base hit. North Carolina leads.
This dude's just throwing me random bones.
Welcome back. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN
Is that like
Tri-Cities, KFOR, and Lincoln.
Is that like listening to Come Fly With Me?
It was a great document. It was a great. It wasn't a documentary. It was a great V8. It was a great video.
Every time that you guys say this, I just have Sinatra going in my head. Come fly with me.
No, it was
not
no.
a crooner.
No.
All right, that's fair.
To be fair, it wasn't a documentary, but it was just a great. It was a great
Dolores
video.
said, "Keep your eye on the ball."
Yeah.
Keep your eye on the ball, Michael.
Dolores is a treasure.
She is actually.
Got a little bit of, I don't know if it's breaking news, but Kristaps Porzingis expected to play Game 1 of the NBA Finals.
I have a question for you.
I'm listening. I'm here.
Do you put him back in the starting lineup? You won 64 with him, but you've won 12 without him.
Yeah, I think you do.
Start him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And if it doesn't go well, if he's not healthy, then you can make some switches there. But
you called your shot. You said he's not playing against.
I'm a little worried about him play. I mean, they've had a long time off now, but ever since the KD thing, I'm real careful. I'm like real cautious about those.
Well,
casts.
basically Giannis.
Yeah.
Remember that was just a strain.
Yeah, that's like I'm saying they call things a lot of things.
Giannis is who I'm talking about.
Oh,
My bad.
Never mind. They call a lot of those things strained calves, and I'm like, you sure it's not an Achilles? Like you super duper sure?
Yeah.
Because it seems like you're trying to make us not worry about it, and it seems like it might be an Achilles.
Yeah, we didn't see those guys, so
I'm just
you will see Porky Zingus, as I like to say to my 14-year-old at home.
There's actually no K in there.
I know.
He's not really porky. Like he's a lean guy.
It's always about making up words in our house.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Kind of like I do on there. Can I ask you something though? Because we didn't get to this.
Yeah, let's do it.
With the College Football Hall of Fame finalists, Shane. I'm going to roll the dice and assume you've heard of this guy.
You still owe me $1 for that other one.
I know it. When I say DJ Dozier.
Oh, I thought you were going to say DJ Cali. Yeah, DJ Dozier. Running back.
DJ Smoking Dozier.
Running back. Yep.
Does that seem like Hall of Fame to you?
No.
Okay.
But what Hall of Fame? We're talking pro. We're talking college.
College football.
That I don't know.
What about Steve Slayton?
I don't know who that is.
He played with Pat White. They were prolific. The Steve Slayton seemed like an HOFer.
More than DJ Dozier does.
So Dozier at least won a title. I mean, they were undefeated.
I think Slayton teams are pretty damn good.
Oh, I know.
They were a game away from playing. What was it? It was the Pitt game, right? It was a backyard brawl. They lost that they would have gone a national title.
What about this one? What about Antoine Randall L?
100%.
Just because of the
prolific. I mean,
6,000, 3,000.
Andy was sort of a pioneer, might be too strong, but he was like an archetype of a certain type of guy that we see a lot now that we didn't see a lot then.
What about
like those guys before Antoine Randall L?
Yeah.
Most of them got Peter Warg. They got moved to wide receiver before they got to the NFL. I know Randall eventually ended up there. By the way, Steve Slayton in 3 years had 700 more rushing yards than DJ Dozier had in 4, just for whatever that's worth.
It's just kind of weird.
Like I was expecting way better numbers out of Dozier when I pulled him up, and I was just like, that's what we're on. We're doing that.
What about Aaron Donald?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm probably conflating too much NFL into him because
No, he was sensational.
He was incredible in college, but I don't.
Yeah.
I'm trying to separate.
Some people called Aaron Donald the safest pick in the draft when he came out.
Yeah, and some people thought he was too small. Thought he was a little short, a little lean.
Ride with me on that one though.
That's fine. It wasn't a consensus.
And guess what? Pitt could make the case. They have the two best small defensive linemen that are going to be in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Who's the other one?
This is before you.
Is it Hugh Green?
Very good.
Thank you.
A Heisman finalist and point getter.
Yeah.
Shane, did you know Hugh Green?
Oh yeah.
Slayton
I didn't know though.
I'm a big Hugh Green guy.
Yeah.
Because I thought I should like Pittsburgh in college because
you liked him in the NFL.
I liked him in the NFL.
Yeah,
I grew out of that. I'm embarrassed that there was a stretch where I liked Michigan because of the black and yellow. I didn't get the whole maize and blue thing. I got as my witness. I had no idea. I was like, oh, that's not the color I thought they were.
I mean, listen, on standard def TVs back in the day, it was a little harder to tell.
The ones that sit on the ground that have
the wood box.
Yes,
we had one of those.
Hey, so our knob pulled out. It was like a silver knob.
Really?
Pulled out. Yeah, and it would have these multicolored colors on there before the picture came on.
Yeah. No, that it kind of was like dialing.
At least they had wheels on them so you could move them.
No, I didn't see what this one had speakers on the side.
Yeah, it was all in this wood grain box, and it had the speakers on the side. Yeah. They're kind of if you look at them now, they're kind of cool looking. They're very old school, obviously.
Good call on Hugh Green, though.
Thank you. Yeah, we got ours from my grandma.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And I mean, I bet you Hugh Green played at 230.
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, you had some lean dudes back then. But the Donald thing was real though. They're like, oh, can he hold up in the middle at 280 or whatever he was rocking at the time? And
like, do you put him in the category of Calvin Johnsons and Barry Sanders, of guys that retired way before you thought they were going to?
Less
hard to believe Aaron Donald isn't playing.
Yeah, less so than Barry, but probably in the same category.
Because Barry was what, 9
years, and
was
you're
9
just
or 10? 9?
And you just watch him, and you're like, oh, there's a lot left there, bud.
Dude, is it not hilarious that those guys during that time, like if you didn't get to 10, we thought something was wrong with you. Now, if you get to 5, you're amazing.
Yeah, well, especially running backs,
right?
Yeah, if you have 5
like Derrick Henry is like this.
Yeah, he's found the fountain of youth.
I mean, and Gore played for 34 years.
You get to 5 productive years as a running back now, and you have some miracle cure. That
I just don't know how that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
like, how did we get to 30 and you fall off the cliff thing?
Well, especially because,
well, they're probably figuring out. I mean, just for looking at it,
Dalvin Cook barely got carries last year.
Yeah, and he was unbelievable 2 years ago.
It's like,
right? Was it 2 years ago that he was really good?
I would force my way out of that signing too, but
I was just going to say some of these
I
guys.
was like, oh, he'd be a good compliment while what's his buckets comes back from the ACL.
Yeah,
in New York, and it's like
nobody could get. Oh, yeah, with the Iowa State guy.
Yeah, who I actually love.
His name Brees Hall.
Yeah,
I don't know why his name was escaping me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in 2022, Dalvin Cook went 1,100 yards, 4.5 yards a carry, 8 touchdowns.
Yeah.
In 2023, he had 67 carries for 214 yards.
Criminal.
3 yards a carry, no touchdowns.
It's criminal.
What on earth? That's a
New York,
1 year.
Maybe.
I mean, it does poison a lot of people.
Are you buying them?
No.
That roster is way good.
Yeah.
He said no.
And Aaron Rodgers is still a ding dong.
What if he's just nice? I'm gonna actually cheer for him.
Why?
No. Because I get it. This is not a guy that I normally would cheer for. I kind of like his candor.
I don't, because I think he's a dumbass. So I appreciate.
I'm sorry. What was that?
What's that?
I'm allowed to say that on the air, Shane. I know.
We've said much worse.
I appreciate candor a lot less.
You can say dumb as much as you want.
Just like you can
Dude,
say.
You're the guy that let 2 guys cuss last week on air.
Just like you can say leakage as much as you want.
We gotta be the only show that like two expletives are said within 2 hours last week.
Listen, when you got some of the guests we have,
it's like, oops.
No, I
didn't tell him to say that.
I value candor a lot less when you're a moron and don't know you're a moron.
Well, I don't know. Like, you don't think he's very smart?
I think he's not nearly as smart as he thinks he is.
God, I think he's sensational.
Well, that's fine. I mean, you're allowed to be wrong. It's not a big deal.
He is.
That's fine.
I mean, we think a lot differently, but I certainly think he's bright.
My issue isn't that I don't actually think he's a moron. I think his opinion of his intelligence does not match his actual intelligence. I think it's a little out of whack there.
It is,
which is a tough. That's a tough hang. Do you think kids are a tough hang? People who think they're smarter than they are, like that rivals kids with people I don't want to hang out with.
It's 9:54. Have we seen any sort of apologies from Pat McAfee? Not that I need my pound of flesh.
Pat McAfee?
Yes.
No, not that I'm aware of.
So again, as long as those things are allowed to happen, we're gonna have people just talk reckless.
Yeah, because people. What's your favorite line in the world? People can make you dumber.
It just can. I think it just can.
Oh, he did. Okay, he says I shouldn't have used that term as a descriptor of Caitlin Clark, no matter the context. Even when we're talking about race being a reason for some of the stuff happening.
I think he said that
too
yesterday.
Much respect for her and women to put that in the universe.
Yeah.
So he did apologize.
All right. We can move on.
He didn't really apologize. You said he shouldn't have said it. Is that the same thing? Is that different? Is that an apology? Did he say I'm sorry, or is that an explanation or his excuse?
Did he take ownership?
I don't know. We'll see. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back tomorrow. More Hurrdat Sports Radio.
see you. Have a good day. Love you.